Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the second day of the conference. We will now begin our general debate on the main theme, strengthening trust and embracing hope for our common future. I would like to begin with some opening remarks. And I would like to give the floor to the current president of the IPU, Dr. Tulia Axon. You want here? It's better? Okay.
Excellencies, honorable members of Parliament, esteemed religious leaders, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, dear colleagues. Yesterday, I shared some words about why we are all gathered here. For a truly inclusive conversation about our common present and our shared future. The topic of our general debate and the title of our conference, Parliamentarians in Dialogue with Religion and Belief, Strengthening Trust and Embracing Hope for Our Common Future, is inspired by the motto of the Jubilee year, called by the late Pope Francis, which is Pilgrims of Hope. I wanted to offer some reflections on the themes of trust and hope. On trust, parliaments are one of the most important institutions for upholding the social contract, that unwritten bond of trust that keeps societies cohesive and resilient. Parliamentarians provide a vital link between the people and the national government institutions. It is parliamentarians who are tasked with hearing and representing the people in their diversity of political positions and making laws, passing budgets, carrying out oversight, and debating important issues to guarantee the equal rights and dignity for all. Trust is an essential precondition for the effective work of Parliament, for confidence in the government, and for the upholding of the rule of law. It is the foundation of a healthy democracy. Trust, colleagues and friends, is earned in drops and lost in buckets. As the saying goes, as we face difficult times in governance and in coexistence, we must nurture that hard-won trust, which has been earned not merely. We all know that we are living in difficult times, where trust is being tested. Firstly, we have seen polarization and disinformation that are creating rifts in communities. Secondly, we have seen multilateralism and the rules-based international order that it is being questioned. And thirdly, we have seen growing disparities, conflicts, and the climate crisis means that we don't know how the future will look like. Restoring and strengthening trust is an important task, especially for political and religious decision makers. Without trust, our office is meaningless, since it is the trust of our constituents or congregants that give us our mandate. And trust in ourselves is what gives us the strength to go on these hard times. Trust is closely connected to hope. It is hope that gets us out of bed each day, which nurtures the optimism and ambition to strive for something better, that drives so many of us gathered here today to take on roles which are anything other than 9 to 5. Hope is part of what makes us all human. I believe it is hope that has inspired all of us about 600 people, to come to this conference to discuss how religion and politics can engage in dialogue for a better future. The challenges facing us are bigger than us, each individually, but also bigger than our communities. They transcend national borders and cross faith lines. The general debate is a special moment in this conference where parliamentarians, religious leaders, civil society, and international experts can take the floor to share with the world the good practices of how their societies can and do benefit from joint action and interfaith dialogue for the common good. The IPU has been listening carefully to your interventions since yesterday, and we also took note of the questions that were asked, and we also took note of the views that were given, including the fact that parliamentarians should not take the role of being religious leaders. It is my pleasure to launch here today part 2 of the parliamentary report on religion and belief. This report, dear colleagues, dear friends, is 2 years in the making. It was born in Marrakesh from the good practices that many of you gathered here today shared during the general debate. Part 1 of the report looked at how parliaments engaged institutionally with religion and belief. And part 2, we take a closer look at policy issues, including upholding freedom of religion or belief, responding to hate speech, protecting the rights of religious and belief minorities, and promoting gender equality and women's rights. The report highlights efforts of members of parliament to build bridges of trust with society through interfaith engagement. This report is a testament to the important work you're all doing, members of parliament, faith communities, and other actors, in working inclusively for the common good. It showcases the values and the principles that we have in common, and that each of us, with our own mandates, expertise, outreach, and strengths, can be allies in creating that common future. I encourage each one of you to take a copy home with you, and I hope some of these may inspire you in your own context, in your own national context. I want to end my remarks with a short video highlighting some of the key messages of the report. I hope it's ready. Okay.
The video, please.
So we go to the video and then I'll finish my last bit. Thanks. Colleagues and friends, I look forward to hearing your contributions to this general debate and to learning from you how we can work, what we can do to make our societies more cohesive and our institutions stronger. Thank you for your engagement and also your messages of peace that you will be addressing us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for our President. She summarized very well the core of our debate yesterday, our work yesterday, but now we have to continue the work. And we will now hear from our distinguished guest. I invite Ambassador Simona Mirella Miculescu of Romania, President of the 42 UNESCO General Conference, to give us her opening remarks.
Mr. Honorary President of the Interparliamentary Union, Madam President of the Interparliamentarian Union, esteemed parliamentarians, distinguished keynote speakers, honored religious leaders, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, is there any way of delivering mankind from the menace of war? With the advance of modern science, this question has become not merely philosophical but existential, a matter of life or death for civilization. These powerful words come from the renowned 1931 letter, Why War?, written by Albert Einstein to Sigmund Freud, and in his reply, Freud reflected, whatever makes for cultural development, and we may add today quality education, is working also against war. This exchange reminds us of a simple fact. Peace cannot be dictated from above. It must be nurtured from within in how we think, how we relate to one another, and how we shape the world we share. Last year, we commemorated the centenary of the precursor of UNESCO, the International Institute for Intellectual Cooperation, created after World War I to foster the dialogue across borders and to cultivate what was then called the universal conscience. UNESCO was born 2 decades later from the devastation of the Second World War, founded on the idea that since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed. This is actually the first sentence of our Constitution. Today, nearly a century on, we must ask, where do we stand? Violent conflicts are spiraling. Hyperconnectivity has not guaranteed harmony. Digital abundance has not deepened understanding. Information moves at the speed of light, but so does disinformation. Algorithms reinforce bias. Deepfakes imitate truth. The hard truth is that peace, and indeed our collective existence, is under pressure, and I would say under threat. This erosion of trust is a civic crisis. It threatens our democracies, our capacity for cooperation, and our ability to imagine a future together. This is why the theme of this conference today is not only timely, it is vital. I am deeply honored to participate in this discussion and to bring UNESCO's perspective into the debate. And I would say that securing our common future requires weaving together trust and hope. From the House of Parliaments to places of worship, from multilateral institutions to civil society. In every faith and every legal tradition lies a shared call to build the community through compassion, trust, and responsibility. Let me highlight shortly a few key areas of UNESCO's recent work that are particularly relevant to our discussion. First, education. UNESCO's recommendation on education for peace, human rights and sustainable development, adopted unanimously by 194 member states in November 2023, is the only global standard for transforming education to build peace. It emphasizes that beyond literacy and numeracy, learners must cultivate empathy, critical thinking, intercultural understanding, and environmental stewardship. It underlines that there is no peace without gender equality and girls' education. We will explore this further, actually, in our panel discussions, as far as I understood. But let me underline one thing. Parliamentarians have a key role in translating this recommendation into national legislation and education systems so that every teacher, every learner, and the entire society can benefit. Second, ethical digital transformation. Digital transformation, including artificial intelligence, is reshaping our lives, clearly. It offers the promise of tremendous benefits, but without ethical guardrails, it can reproduce discrimination, magnify divisions, and threaten rights and freedoms. UNESCO adopted the first ever global recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence in 2021, again, unanimously. This comprehensive framework guides national efforts across multiple domains, from data governance and education to health, the environment and gender equality. And here too, your role as legislators is essential in translating this at the national level. National AI policies must embed human rights, transparency and fairness, ensuring that AI serves humanity and promotes sustainable development. Third, building a commons of trust in the digital age. At the 2023 Internet for Trust conference at UNESCO, we addressed one of the defining challenges of our time: how to govern digital platforms in a way that protects freedom of expression while tackling the global risks of disinformation, hate speech, conspiracy theories. The result was the multi-stakeholder development of a comprehensive a comprehensive set of guidelines for the governance of digital platforms. They provide a roadmap for states, civil society groups and companies alike, calling for transparency in content moderation, independent oversight, algorithmic accountability and the inclusion of users and civil society in decision-making processes. Because if trust is to survive in the digital age, the rules that govern our online spaces must be fair, transparent and anchored in democratic principles and international human rights law. We are also proud of our collaboration with the Interparliamentary Union and the Centre for Law and Democracy in launching a massive open online course on freedom of expression for parliaments. We opened it in October 2024. Over 4,000 participants from more than 180 countries have already taken part. And in a world where truth itself is increasingly fragile, initiatives like this strengthen the foundations of democracy. Finally, and most importantly, let us remember that we are one humanity, living on one planet. Our cultures give us identity, our faiths give us meaning, but our shared humanity gives us purpose. There is no contradiction between honoring our cultural and religious diversity and at the same time recognizing our common destiny. On the contrary, the deeper our roots, the stronger our respect for the roots of others. This is the spirit of unity in diversity that makes peace sustainable and possible. Excellencies, let us work together across politics and religions, across cultures and nations, across international organizations and national institutions to construct the defenses of peace in the minds of every human being. In doing so, we carry forward the legacy of those who, a century ago, dared to speak of a universal conscience, the deep awareness that our futures are interdependent and that peace is not an aspiration for the few, but a responsibility shared by us all. Thank you. Grazie.
Thank you, Ambassador Miculescu. I now invite Mr. Miguel Moratinos, High Representative of the United Nations Alliance of Civilization, former Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation and former Member of Parliament of Spain, to take the floor.
Thank you very much. Buongiorno, everybody. The Honorable Senator Per Ferdinando Cassini, IPU Honorary President, the Honorable Dr. Tulia Axon, IPU President, distinguished parliamentarian, distinguished guests, distinguished friends. It's a privilege for me to be with you today in this impressive chamber that represents the voices, hopes, and aspirations of people. I thank Mr. Martin Chungon, my dear friend, Secretary General of IPU, for inviting me to your esteemed gathering. My dear friends, we meet a moment when the world is facing daunting challenges, from wars and forced displacement to the rising tide of hate speech, religious intolerance, and polarization, all of which erode the very fabric of our societies, create fear, and fuel violence. And I talk here about all forms of religious bigotry against all religion, community across the faith spectrum. As a UN Special Envoy to combat Islamophobia, a UN focal point to monitor anti-Semitism, I remain committed to stand up against all manifestations of religious hatred. In just time, the act of dialogue across faith, belief, and ideology become an act of courage. It becomes a statement of hope, and it reminds us that trust is not given. It is built conversation by conversation, action by action. For the United Nations Alliance of Civilization, intercultural and interfaith dialogue, in its broader sense, has been and continues to be our raison d'etre. Dialogue is anchored in our motto, many cultures, one humanity, is our motto. I thank you, Dr. Simona, to refer to this concept of one humanity. Yes, we are one humanity, one planet, and we have to save the planet, but we have to save humanity. So, dialogue and reform continue to be our hope for peace. 20 years ago, when United Nations Alliance on Civilization was created in 2005, it was in response to a dangerous narrative that civilization were on a path of inevitable confrontation, the clash of civilization, they say. Today, 2 decades later, we offer a different vision, one grounded in mutual respect, shared values, and the deep belief that our diversity is a source of strength. Honorable representative, as parliamentarians, and I've been parliamentarian myself, you stand at the front of this effort. You shape the laws that protect freedom of religion or belief, which are fundamental rights rooted in universal human rights. You foster the political will to uphold and protect human rights for all. And you provide an example through your words and your deeds that respect for diversity is not a threat to unity, but is rather its foundation. Today's conference calls us to move beyond mere tolerance, towards genuine mutual respect and understanding. It asks us not only to hear each other, but truly listening, and through that listening to find common ground. To engage in a meaningful dialogue rather than indulge in monologue. To build bridges instead of standing walls. To deconstruct bigotry and the dehumanization of the other. To embed empathy in our judgment and common sense. At a time when divisive narrative and dehumanization rhetoric so often dominate our public spaces, and when digital platforms amplify voices of fear and hatred, gatherings like this one send a different message, a message that dialogue can heal and that a shared future is still within our grasp. Finally, let me inform you that last 26th of April, in the Spanish town Guernica, I imagine you remember that, I launched with Religion for Peace organization an initiative called a cry for peace, end of wars, and respect for international law. I would like to really invite all of you to adhere to this initiative. We will have the second round of this initiative in October, 16th, 17th, 18th of October in Sarajevo, and I will be glad to have some of you or all of you in Sarajevo to continue this cry for peace, end all wars, and respect for international law. Let us leave this conference with renewed resolve to strengthen trust not only between religion and belief, but across political, social, and cultural divides. To embrace hope not as a naive ideal, but a deliberate choice to work towards a world anchored in dignity, equality, and peace. Let's save the planet, let's save humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moratinos. I now invited Sayed Yavad El Kohei, Secretary General at the Al Kohei Institute, to take the floor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحضور الكرام سيد.
Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Excellencies, and good morning to all. Our world is living through a moment of division, a moment of challenges among communities, a moment in which crisis threatens the stability of all humankind. Facing this situation, there is one essential question: how can we restore confidence? And how can we achieve hope? How can we attain confidence and embrace hope? This is the title of what we are discussing. We have a common responsibility through common solidarity in our world today, after we've seen winds of war, and we have also seen much blood shed. We must rebuild bridges at a time where there is so much uncertainty in various societies and nations, but we must ask ourselves and understand how we can construct what we need and what the role of religious, government and parliamentary institutions can play in this context. Ladies and gentlemen, what distinguishes celestial religions, but also the various non-religious philosophical doctrines, is that one speaks not directly with people, but with souls, with consciousnesses, striving to build on human values, and so through also through issues relating to morality, which is the fulcrum of souls, which puts an end to damage and disagreement. So religions do not lead to war, but they are a factor to promoting the values of justice, compassion, and commonality between peoples. Human dignity has been considered as a fundamental essence, and providing bonds among people, giving dignity to the human being. This divine relationship is not simply something transcendental, but leads us to respect others, putting an end to all disagreements and difficulties. So human dignity is an essential right for human beings, without taking into account the color or the nationality of people. So we must strive to put an end to oppression and to any kind of difficulty, both in occupied Palestine and in Ukraine and in all other countries in the world. And we need to work together with all our strength in order to further develop human dignity, protect it everywhere, and at all times we must be against injustice, whatever the situation. As far as human dignity is concerned, it is not an individual right, but it is the basis for peaceful coexistence. And here we come to the question, if we want justice and occupation and employment, why is our world still being torn apart? Dear brothers and sisters, unfortunately, the principle of celestial religions are not placed center stage. The problem is the understanding and the use of these religions by those who monopolize the interpretation of these religions, putting them to political use too. So religious leaders must strive to explain these religions, also providing visions and rationales which proceed from religions in order to explain the true significance therein. And therefore at Medjugorje, the Shia community has tried not to be an active part in political battle, but to be a voice for justice and some bolster for poor people and those who wish to struggle for freedom. I want to give you an example of somebody who died recently, and I'm obviously referring to Pope Francis, who in his notes printed before his death stated, and here I recall a sentence, he said, at Medjugorje, I took a gift at Medjugorje, and people can be together and they can be brothers and sisters in religion. In this brotherhood and sisterhood, we can achieve justice and equality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now invite Archbishop Ioannis Zafaridis of the Orthodox Archdiocese of Zambia and Mozambique to take the floor. How close? Yes. Okay. Or change the microphone.
Grazie, buongiorno. Καλημέρα.
Good morning.
Dear participants, as you know, this year UNESCO has recognized Greek language as one of the international languages. So, moreover, this institution I represent, name of Patriarchate of Alexandria in all Africa, has a history more of 20 centuries. This institution using the Greek language. So, for those reasons, please let me address this opening in Greek language by following the translation.
It is with great joy and emotion that I have the honor of participating in the opening ceremony of the general debate of the Rome Conference on Interfaith Dialogue. This is a unique occasion where, on the initiative of the PU, the crossroads of the meeting of the political and the religious spheres is created for the benefit of humanity. We must not forget that there is no political space without citizens, and there is no religious space without believers. You politicians and we clergy, we are not simply authorities and administrators of institutions and powers. We are representatives, mandate holders, and trustees of the people who make up our societies. We therefore bear full responsibility for peaceful coexistence, education of youth, sustainable development, and social development of the peoples and communities we represent. We must primarily struggle for a more peaceful, more just, and more inclusive world for the present and future generations. In my brief opening speech, I would like to share my personal experiences of the way I have experienced the collaboration between political institutions and the Orthodox Church of the Patriarchate of Alexandria and all Africa, which I have the honor to serve. Please allow me to point out from the outset that this collaboration has been fruitful in all cases and has left me with the best impressions. During my pastorate under the ancient Patriarchate of Alexandria and all Africa, I found in most cases that the collaboration of our church with political institutions was necessary and imperative, I would say, in order to support our parishes and communities of believers, as well as to alleviate the pain of our suffering brothers and sisters. Especially for our Orthodox Church, which represents a religious minority in African countries. A typical example was the collaboration of our Orthodox Archdiocese with the government authorities of the Republic of Zambia and Mozambique to provide full scholarships to students from the two countries to study in ecclesiastical schools in Greece. Another example concerned our collaboration with political institutions in Zambia to improve the conditions of detention in correctional facilities for women and minors. Furthermore, the religious space must be open to collaborations and joint initiatives with international political organizations, such as the United Nations and the IPU. I will never forget the good collaboration we had with the United Nations Office in Zambia and the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees in the context of the delivery of health assistance to refugee communities affected by the cholera epidemic that broke out in northern Zambia in 2018. And in this case, the result of this joint initiative was the saving of human lives. As you already know, the most representative wing of the political space is the parliamentary institutions. I had the pleasure and honor to see very early on the great importance of collaboration with parliaments. I have always a strong belief in that national parliaments are by nature closer to the people and therefore to the communities of our believers. Therefore, they constitute an excellent space for initiatives and actions centered on the common good. It is a rare phenomenon for representatives of religions to get engaged in parliamentary procedures and parliamentary work. However, for several years, I had the privilege to develop strong ties with women and men parliamentarians and parliamentary institutions. Thus, for the last 25 years, I have facilitated as liaison between the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy, the IAO, and the Pan-African Parliament, PAP. Today we have together with us the leadership of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy. Two international parliamentary institutions with important work and activity. My collaboration with the IAO and the Pan-African Parliament has given me the opportunity to understand how the parliamentary and in general political space work. In the video that was shown a few moments ago, you saw a photo of the Speaker of the National Assembly of the Republic of Zambia, Her Excellency Ms. Nelly Muti, and me, jointly planting the Olympic olive tree in the grounds of the National Assembly of Zambia. This symbolic gesture, which took place last year as part of the activities organized by the Orthodox Archdiocese of Zambia with the National Assembly to celebrate the Olympic Games, was intended to convey the message of the Olympic truce, which is, and the Olympic education to the youth of Zambia. The Parliament of Zambia has embraced our proposal for the activities of the Olympic education program, and we are preparing together to establish an Olympic village in the capital of the country, Lusaka, where young and old people can be educated in the Olympic ideal as a way of shaping social behavior. As I'm not accustomed to staying up late writing speeches that make others sleepy, I would like to conclude my speech today with these indicative good practices that I have presented to you from my personal experiences. Allow me only to appeal to the IPU leadership to continue to strengthen their efforts on the crucial issue of the interaction of religion and politics. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Archbishop Safaridis. Now we have to start with the debate, but I would like to give you some advertising. Those of you familiar with IPU assemblies will know how our general debates usually function. But for the benefit of our colleagues from beyond the parliamentary community, I will explain how we will proceed. We invited participants wishing to speak in the general debate to register online, and on that basis, we established a speakers list, which we distributed to you by email earlier this week. We have continued to update that list with the new registrations and adjustments. We have aimed to find a balance in that list between the many parliamentarians interested in speaking and our partners for religions, beliefs, NGOs, faith-based organizations, and academia. As per usual IPU practice, we have also strived to strike a gender and geopolitical balance. The first section of the list will be a high-level segment for Speaker of Parliament, prominent religious leaders, and heads of organization. These will be followed by most other speakers, and finally, a short list containing second speaker from parliamentary delegations. We currently have 65 speakers on the list, so I would like to encourage you to stick to the designated speaking time. National parliamentary delegation have a maximum of 6 minutes speaking time, shared between their speakers if 2 are registered, or a maximum of 4 minutes if only 1 MP is speaking. All other speakers may speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. As we have a panel discussion and other meeting in progress, it may arise that certain speakers are not present in the room when their turn is called. In such cases, we will move them to the end of the list and call them again later. Any registration to speak made in person are being added to the end of the list, and we will call those concerned if we have time before the debate concludes at 5 p.m. today. You will have noticed that this is a working parliamentary chamber, and as such, we do not have a lectern. Speakers are therefore invited to give their speeches from where they are seated in the room. I invited you to stand and turn on the microphone in front of you when you are called upon to speak. Finally, due to the developing situation in the Middle East, several participants were unable to make it to the conference and have instead sent video messages, which we will play at the appropriate time in the predetermined list. Thank you in advance for your understanding, and I wish you fruitful deliberation. I want to remember the colleagues, great friends, that I have one bell, and I will be careful and rigid because we have to take the minutes. The first list, the first is Archbishop Angaelos. He has 4 minutes. After I use my bell. And after Angaelos, Muhammad Al-Yamadi. Now, Archbishop Angaelos, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for organizing this. This is a time of tension and a time of polarization in the world, which makes it even more important that we gather at times like this, in places like this, especially with people who are looked upon, who are trusted, and who are entrusted with both decision-making and leadership. This also calls for a time of good models and good modeling. And one thing we have lost during this particular era is the art of conversation, the art of dialogue. And this is why what we are doing here today is so incredibly important. Because what we are doing here today, as with much of what happens throughout these sessions and sessions like them, is not just here for this chamber, but will go from this chamber into the world as an example of what we are trying to do, and it is to dialogue and to speak. Unfortunately, in an era of social media and social media interaction, we have become far too accustomed and have become very comfortable in our own echo chambers. And we have lost the art of being be able to speak to the other, even if we disagree, but to listen and to speak and to dialogue. Dialogue is necessary because it is no longer a luxury, it is a necessity. I'm not sure if it's just me, but I find that our world is becoming more complex. We are becoming more intersectional. We can no longer live in silos. There was a time when a Coptic Orthodox Christian would have been born in Egypt, lived, worked, and died in the same city or village. Today, we are all global citizens. I myself was born in Egypt, migrated with my family to Australia when I was 5, grew up there, went back to Egypt to join the monastery where I lived for 6 years, and I have been in Britain now for 30 years. And this story is not uncommon with many others in this room. So that sense of being able to speak with one another in a language we understand is incredibly important. This is why we need to take the things we have learned and hand them to generations to come. Mentoring and discipleship are things that are very important in my tradition and can be used in this tradition. So we need to take the wisdom of this chamber and all who are here and present it to coming generations. We need to learn and teach to de-escalate. And I speak again of my quote from Einstein yesterday: a clever man solves problems, a wise man avoids them. And we can avoid much of what we have seen from being reiterated. A wonderful verse comes to mind from Ephesians 4, "Let no corrupt word proceed from your mouth, but what is good and necessary for edification, and which imparts grace on those who listen." So I pray that words of grace continue here. And as I conclude, I quote Nelson Mandela, that our choices reflect our hopes and not our fears. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, and fantastic speech, exactly in 4 minutes. Nobody can be like you. Mohammad Al-Yamadi, President of the Arab Parliament. 4 minutes.
In the name of God, the All-Merciful, the Compassionate, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I salute you and may the blessing of God be upon you. One more time, I would like to address my sincere thanks to the IPU and to the Italian Parliament and to Religions for Peace for their efforts in organizing this conference. A conference held at a time where we need increasingly to reassert the importance of dialogue, especially when we see hate increasing everywhere across the globe. We said it yesterday and we repeat it today. Religions were never a source of conflict, were never a source of wars. Religions always reassert the importance of dialogue and the value of dialogue. They call for conviviality. They condemn hatreds. However, the problem lies always in those who exploit religion for politics. Therefore, we need to avoid extremist behaviors that feed hatred and hostility towards others. We therefore have a heavy responsibility on our shoulders, and parliamentarians across the globe must shoulder this responsibility by drafting laws that preserve the freedom of belief and that prevent hatred from taking root. We need a culture of tolerance and acceptance to prevail among our nations, we need as well to use diplomacy in our parliaments in order to live partnerships, to build partnerships that would build also brotherhoods across the globe. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, today we cannot talk about increasing interfaith dialogue without also talking about the harm against religious symbols. Today, in the name of the freedom of beliefs, we see people destroying symbols of faith. This undermines living together, and this also threatens peace, whether in our countries or across the globe. And therefore, on behalf of the Arab Parliament, I would like to call for unified efforts exerted across the globe in order to have a charter, a parliamentarian charter, so that parliaments will condemn this kind of behaviors. We want for this charter to become a reference so as not to allow hatred speech to take precedence over peace. Last, I would like to reassert that interfaith dialogue is not an ideology. It is a necessity if we are to build peace and stability. It is therefore our responsibility as parliamentarians to do so. And our responsibility doesn't stop at legislations and legal texts. We are here to spread tolerance and hope in our societies. Our world today needs brave and courageous stands to allow peace to prosper. Thank you very much, and again I salute you, and may the blessing of God be upon you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Now, Yahya Pallavicini, Chairman of the European Muslim Leader Majlis, member of the European Council of Religious Leaders, Religion for Peace, member of the Council European, the responsible religions for peace.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It is again a pleasure to give the responsibility of Western European Muslim minority in dialogue within the Abrahamic context of with Jews, Christians and Muslims in the East and in the West, and as well also in dialogue with the Brahmanic tradition, which means the Hindus, the Buddhists and the Taoists. And I think that this intra-religious dialogue and inter-religious dialogue can actually inspire intercultural and interinstitutional relations and provide an inspiration for our common responsibility as believers and as citizens to avoid any hijack of political ideologies that are trying to abuse of religious narrative out of its context and out of its authenticity. So in order to fulfill together our common goals for peace and brotherhood, the authenticity of our roles as citizens, believers, members of the parliament and religious leaders is really a common call for peace and for inspiration in truth and not in any kind of manipulation of doctrine against the sacredness of life. And I think this will be the message we will convey also tomorrow to Pope Leo, and this is also another example of how interparliamentary union and interreligious cooperation is an inspiration for the quality of life of our common good. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
I salute you and may the blessing of God be upon you.
Now the Speaker of the House of Representatives Bosnia-Herzegovina, Denis Zvizvici, and later Dietrich Werner.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I use this opportunity to thank to all people in Interparliamentary Union and Parliament of Republic of Italy for excellent organization of this event in Rome, which, as city from which I come, city of Sarajevo, represents a symbol of rich history, spiritual depth, and symbol among civilization. I'm coming from Bosnia-Herzegovina, a country whose history and identity are amongst the finest examples of how people of different faiths and cultures can live together in harmony. In my country, in many of cities, within just a few hundred meters, you can see places of worship representing all monotheistic religions. This legacy, unity in diversity, is something we take great pride in, and what we see as great contribution to multicultural and tolerance in Europe and in the whole world. Each religion represents the source of moral respect and inspiration for serving to others. But during history, we have witnessed that religion was used for hatred. Unfortunately, in the modern world, we see the try that religion is transforming into ideological weapon using for justification for discrimination and violence. That's why dialogue between parliamentarians and religious leaders is of vital importance. Together, we possess both the power and the responsibility to build societies founded on justice, freedom, and human dignity. Because how we can communicate with God if we are not ready to communicate one with other? That's why the conclusions from this conference must be very clear and must have great influence in order that all understand that interfaith dialogue is a form of communication that has for objective that through dialogue and practice we improve understanding and build the bridges between different religions in order to build peaceful life in tolerance and tolerance. So the objective is not and must not be that we impose or erase the differences, but to have foundation that we understand differences and accept them. Dialogue is a process of learning and not the way that we win among others or that silence others. The religions are God's present, and they have for objective to have prosperity to all humanity and not to be reason for hatred. That's why parliamentarians and religions must work together and organize in order that we build mutual understanding on the basis of known principles. That freedom of religion or belief is fundamental human right. That dialogue is not a sign of weakness, but the most powerful means of resisting intolerance. And that parliaments must be inclusive institutions that embrace diversity, not ideologically or politically closed entities. What is essence of declaration and strategy of IPU? At the end, I think that it is most important that parliaments are working actively to adopt legislation and policies that protect freedom of religion and belief, and to stop the hatred speech with focus on internet and social media. That's why I propose that all parliaments in IPU change the relevant policies and appoint parliamentary bodies that will deal with interfaith dialogue and cooperation with the religious communities. Thank you for your attention. I wish you a fruitful meeting. Thank you.
Dietrich Werner, President of Globeetics.
As a representative of the international non-governmental organization Globe Ethics Foundation in Geneva, which is focused on advancing ethical leadership and promoting responsible governance globally by providing ethical knowledge and skills, I would like to bring three major succinct points to the attention of this esteemed body. The first one, The world cries out for responsible religious leaders articulating common ethical values of peace, of justice and integrity across all dividing national, religious and cultural lines. Religious leaders always represent both their local and regional communities with their needs and longings, but also the universal ethical message of their respective religions, which stand for mercy, for justice, for peace and solidarity. Therefore, despite the deep divides that can exist between communities for political reasons, religious leaders are expected, while being in solidarity with their regional community, to speak up and to defend the universal values of human dignity, of fraternity, justice and peace. These values constitute the important common ground for humanity to preserve dialogue and possibilities for collaboration and reconciliation, even in situations of grave tensions. Secondly, current global circumstances and changes see an unprecedented increase of the number and intensity of conflicts, of horrific atrocities leading to enormous sufferings amongst civilians, and an erosion of the respect of international law and multilateral cooperation. The very functioning of the international order of peace, which was established after the Second World War, is put into question. In this global emergency, an urgent common action for peace is needed, with fresh ideas and methods to prevent a further escalation and to put an end to grave sufferings. One of the elements of the new type of engagement is the need for multi-stakeholder collaboration, as stated in Action 55 in the Pact for the Future, and especially between faith and civil society leaders and law and policy makers. Hence, we commend the IPU leadership role in this field with the Marrakesh Conference and this conference in Rome. We encourage IPU to further develop this process that Globe Ethics is ready to support and to continue to partner with. Thirdly, within this gloomy period, we need a trajectory of hope to offer a better perspectives, particularly for the young people and for future generations, and to revitalize the sense of our human unity. 40 Jewish, Christian and Muslim religious leaders with peace experts recently met at the invitation of Wilton Park, of Globe Ethics and the UK Embassy to the Holy See, and also in collaboration with the UN Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights. The outcome of their discussion is a statement with 19 commitments under the title "The Role and Responsibility of Religious Leaders in Times of War, Atrocities and Polarization," which represents an important milestone on this trajectory of hope. Globe Ethics is committed to support this process and invites the participants of this conference to join us from 8 to 10 October at the Global Ethics Forum in Geneva to continue the conversation and to transform these commitments into actions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Secretary General of the Ahmadiyya League of Religion Scholars, Ahmad Abadi. Later, the Speaker of the Federal National Council of United Arab Emirates. Video. Okay.
Greetings from Rabat. I wish I could have been able to be among you for this wonderful and crucial conference, which is held in the beautiful Rome, and which is the continuation of the conference that was held in Marrakesh in the period between the 12th and the 15th of June 2023. We have witnessed in this beautiful conference how God-sized dreams could come true. when the dreaming wings do still have their feathers, wings that have been unfeathered in many cases. We, as a human family, extended human family, have lost this capacity to see how the universe conspires with you if you hold, if you shape God-sized dreams. Our God-sized dream is to see humanity in peace, in living together, in agreement to unroot the rotten fear and the escalation for weaponization, and to uphold our responsibility to reinforce education. Because without education, it's the binary approach that simplifies falsely our work and induces us to errors that would lead to demolition. In this conference, in the beautiful Rome, I would like to emphasize on the fact that without a clear vision, without a functional set of mechanisms, and without the procedural approach, and without evaluation, we cannot reach what we need. Because yes, the feathered wings of dream can offer us the capacity to fly and to have those great dreams, but realizing them takes this groundwork, and which is known for the Interparliamentary Union, the great institution. And it is because it is a great institution that we are wishing for it to take and lift the torch of this shared dream for peace. The Interparliamentary Union has the privilege to not be operating within the governmental time. It is operating within a transcending time. And we wish for our parliamentaries, for our religious leaders, and for our academicians to join efforts under the leadership of this great institution and establishment to continue the work that was started 2 years ago in Marrakesh in the same period, and to give birth to a whole new set of the dreams that could avoid our humanity, the catastrophes that it is unfortunately walking towards. I wish you the greatest of successes in this great conference, our conference, and hope to have the privilege to see you all in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have the intervention of Gobash, Speaker of the Federal National Council, United Arab Emirates.
Your Excellency Pier Ferdinando Cassini, Your Excellency Tolia Exon, Head of the IPU and Head of Parliament in Tanzania, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I salute you first and may the blessing of God be upon you. Today, we meet. We represent our peoples in this meeting with our various languages and cultures and religions. However, the latters are the pillars behind the birth of human values like dignity, freedom of belief, and the right to live in peace and security. We meet in Rome, a city that was for centuries one of the beating hearts of mankind history. By doing so, we reassert the importance of a pathway where nations interact in fields such as politics, law, citizenship, diversity, and intellectual work. Today, we also reassert the importance of dialogue and living together, two values that represent beacons of light in the history of mankind, which allows civilizations cultures and religions to meet, thus allowing for knowledge, art, and peace to prosper. However, acknowledging this heritage prompts us to get a deeper understanding of dialogue, its consequences, and its nature. And this is something important in light of the current situation. Dialogue does not imply the dissolution of identity. It does not require abandoning our cultural or religious beliefs. Dialogue is the respect of diversity. It is an investment in diversity as a fertile ground to build collaboration between nations. Dear brothers and sisters, the United Arab Emirates, ever since its inception, chose to live by a progressive human philosophy where peaceful conviviality and dialogue between religions and cultures and building peace are the founding values of the nation and the state. And as part of this, in 2019, the Declaration on Humanitarian Brotherhood was born in our country under the patronage of His Royal Highness Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. This declaration was not merely a declaration of intent. It was a philosophical and moral framework. It was a cornerstone for the foundation of a new world order where human dignity stands above everything else. This declaration also shows a deep understanding of the world, a world that needs a new moral order where religions are free from political influence and where we lay common grounds for equal citizenship for all, and when the respect of diversity is a common responsibility, not just a national option. And I would like to end by paraphrasing the declaration made by ourselves in the past. Let it be a roadmap for us in the future in order for us to achieve what we set down to achieve. We ask from ourselves, world leaders, political decision makers, and economic decision makers to work on spreading a culture of tolerance, conviviality, and peace, and to intervene immediately to stop innocent bloodshed, and to stop wars and conflict, and to stop cultural and moral decline. We call upon thinkers, philosophers, men of religion, artists, the media, and innovators to rediscover the values of peace, justice, good, beauty, brotherhood, and conviviality. We reassert the importance of these values. Let all of these persons spread those values everywhere across the globe. Thank you very much for your attention. I salute you, and one more time, may the blessing of God be upon you.
By Shaib Professor Mahinder Singh Ahluwalia, Chairman of the Guru Nanak Nashim Nasawak, Co-President and Trustee of the Religion for Peace.
Thank you. The theme today is strengthening trust and embracing hope for our common future. And I believe we are also looking for peace within ourselves, families, communities, and society. The first point I want to make is the urgency and priority. You know, we may not realize, but death is only a breath away. We have to do things fast. We talk about hope, success, faith, trust, optimism. All these are interconnected. If you want these, you want to mobilize 5 virtues and values: mercy, compassion, truthfulness, contentment as opposed to greed, humility, love and sacrifice. The other possibility is, of course, dismay and failure. If you want to talk about these, you will have to avoid 5 vices: lust, revenge, greed, virtual attachment, and the most dangerous one, ego, edging God out, that is arrogance. We have to work together. We have to come up with instruments and principles. In my little time, I have been able to come up with a peace charter for forgiveness and reconciliation. There can be no peace, sustainable peace, without reconciliation and forgiveness. The other thing I want to mention is humanity is obsessed with rights. We have forgotten responsibilities. There was a proposed Universal Declaration of Responsibilities drafted from 83 to 97 and was expected to be adopted into the rights. It was not done. We need to look at it again. We would have stopped wars if we had done that. Let us again look at responsibilities. Responsibilities are a precursor to rights. We have to work very, very closely with all religious people, non-religious people, governments, everybody. We are all connected with one humanity. We are parts of the same divine. We are sparks of the divine. That is our soul, that is our spirit. We must also consider what happens at death. Sometimes we feel that is the end of the matter. It is not. So the question is, where have we come from? Where are we going? And what is the purpose of life? We have to think about all these. And we have to serve. And love demands sacrifice. No love without sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Now, the President of the Senate, Eswatini, Lindine Dlamini.
Thank you, the President of the IPU, Dr. Tulia Axon, Secretary General of the IPU Assembly, Your Excellencies, Presiding Officers, and Honorable Members of the Assembly, esteemed religious leaders, distinguished delegates, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. It is an immense privilege to address this august gathering at the Conference on the Interfaith Dialogue, centered on the profound theme of strengthening trust and embracing hope for our common future. On behalf of the Parliament and the people of the Kingdom of Eswatini, under the wise leadership of His Majesty King Mswati III, I extend our warmest greetings and our unwavering commitment to the principles of peace, understanding, and shared progress. Our Parliament, like parliaments across the globe, is entrusted with a sacred threefold mandate: lawmaking, oversight, and representation. These core responsibilities are deeply intertwined with the essence of strengthening trust and embracing hope, particularly through interfaith cooperation and shared values. Parliament legislates to govern society. For trust to flourish and hope to take root, laws must be just, equitable, and reflective of the aspirations of all citizens, regardless of faith or belief. In Eswatini, our laws promote human rights, social justice, and freedom of belief, ensuring dignity for all. Fair, impartial laws strengthen trust in institutions and create a peaceful coexistence. The interfaith dialogue enriches this process by informing us about the diverse values and needs of our communities, enabling more inclusive legislation. Oversight means holding the executive accountable. It is critical to building a public trust where there is transparency, accountability, and zero tolerance for corruption. Citizens have confidence in their institutions. In the Kingdom of Eswatini, Parliament uses questions, committees, and budgetary scrutiny to exercise oversight. This fosters a culture of responsibility, not just identifying gaps, but promoting continuous improvement. From an interfaith viewpoint, oversight reflects universal ethical principles such as honesty, integrity, and service. Thus, Parliament's role reinforces the moral fabric of society and inspires hope. Perhaps most significant in this context is representation, being the voice of the people. Parliaments must listen and reflect on what the people are saying. It is important that diverse aspirations of all citizens, including faith communities, are listened to. In Eswatini, we value peace among religious denominations. Our Parliament seeks inclusion, engagement, and genuine empathy across all sectors. True representation goes beyond members. It's about ensuring every voice counts. Interfaith dialogue offers a platform for moral voices to be heard. When parliaments listen to these voices, they strengthen the connection between people and government, fostering ownership and shared destiny. Lawmaking, oversight, representation are not just procedures, they form a foundation for a trusted and hopeful society. When we legislate fairly, hold power to account, and include all voices, we create peace and prosperity. This conference reminds us that parliaments do not work alone. Our duties connect deeply to the spiritual health of our nations. Through interfaith collaboration, we can strengthen trust, cultivate empathy, and embrace hope for our humanity. I'd like to thank the IPU and the Italian Parliament for a good conference that is very timely. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, President. David Saperstein, Director Emeritus and Senior Advisor for Policy and Strategy of the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism. Saperstein is here? No, not yet. Mark Daly, Chairperson of the Senate of Ireland. Thank you, I'm sorry.
Thank you. John Hume, the Nobel Prize winner who won the Peace Prize for his work on the Good Friday Agreement, was from Derry in Ireland. He said all conflicts are about difference, whether that is difference of race, religion, or nationality. Difference is natural. Difference is an accident of birth. It should therefore never be a source of hatred or conflict. The answer to difference is to respect it. Therein lies a most fundamental principle of peace, a respect for diversity. The conflict on our island that came to an end at the signing of the Good Friday Agreement in 1998 was complex. Religion, nationality, identity and injustice all played a part. Yesterday, the most powerful speaker at the Interfaith conference was an atheist from Mexico, the Senate President. He spoke about the conflict in Israel and Palestine, a conflict of faith, of nationality, identity and much, much more. For surely at an interfaith dialogue, we should be talking about conflicts that are about faith, a conflict that includes identity, difference, nationality. We should talk about the solutions. It is interesting that the leaders of religious organizations and most political speakers did not talk about an interfaith conflict that is happening now in our world. We should be talking about it. We should be talking about the solutions, about a pathway forward, about a ceasefire, about hostages being released, an end to the killing. But like in the case of Ireland, how do we stop the violence, but how do we create a peaceful way forward? Surely that is what an interfaith dialogue should be about. I will finish on this. Political leaders and religious leaders who remain silent should reflect on the words of Daniel O'Connell. Nothing is politically right which is morally wrong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Exact time. Now, Ioan Volpescu, President of the General Assembly of the Interparliamentary Assembly of Orthodoxy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear participants, at the outset, allow me to convey warm greetings of the head of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy, Secretary General, member of the Hellenic Parliament, Dr. Maximos Harakopoulos. Our organization sincerely welcomes the initiative of organizing the Rome Conference, which follows the emblematic first parliamentary conference on interfaith dialogue held in Marrakesh in 2023, and the side event co-organized by the IPU, the AIO, and the King Hamad Global Center for Coexistence and Tolerance in the context of the 150th IPU Assembly in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. I am certain you will agree with me that in order to address the multiple challenges and crises the modern world is facing, collective responses are necessary. Nowadays, the political field cannot monopolize the decision-making process, but together with other fields of institutional expression, such as religions and civil society, have the ability to make legitimate decisions. The IPU, through the Marrakesh Conference and the Rome Conference, provides a clear framework for how cooperation between parliamentary and religious institutions can be structured. Of course, difficulties arise in these cooperations. On one hand, the parliamentary space is clearly defined in terms of presumptions of its representation and is governed by rules and procedures in terms of its operation. On the other hand, the religious space is more free of such norms, resulting in the emergence of extra-institutional entities and expressions alongside the official institutional structures of religions, which often exhibit particular dynamics and influence in society. Within such a fragmented field, such as the field of religion, special attention needs to be paid to our chosen interlocutor. Therefore, the codifications of religion institutions and personalities is perhaps the greatest challenge we must overcome. For 44 consecutive years, our organization has opened channels of communication with various religions and religious organizations and communities, not only of the Christian world, but also of the Muslim world, and has gained significant experience in communicating and undertaking such actions in the religious field. We anticipate continuing the discussion after Rome around the specific axis. Our proposal concerns the formation of a framework of principles and values that will administer the cooperation of parliamentary and religious actors and the provision of procedural steps and criteria aiming to a successful dialogue between the two fields. In this way, the exclusion of extreme behaviors that use religion as an instrument for obtaining political benefits is also achieved. We believe that such an initiative should have the active support of the IPU in order to facilitate its member parliaments in the creation of permanent institutional processes and structures for regular and substantive dialogue with religions. The AIO is ready to contribute as one of the few international parliamentary institutions with expertise on issues of religious values. Finally, I hope that the Rome Conference and its conclusions will lead humanity even closer to achieving peace, reconciliation and friendship among peoples, all religions and beliefs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now there is Emerson Jaffa Kingi, Speaker of the Senate, Kenya.
Thank you, Madam President. Dear colleagues, the themes strengthening trust and embracing hope for a common future rightfully guide us towards reaffirming the power of interfaith dialogue as a cornerstone for peace, inclusivity and sustainable development. Kenya's rich tapestry of cultures, religions and traditions offers both lessons and aspirations in our shared quest for a harmonious future. In Kenya, interfaith dialogue is not merely a policy, but a lived reality. From the coastal interfaith councils fostering Christian-Muslim cohesion to grassroots initiatives like the Shared Future Project, which empowers you to counter extremism through dialogue. We have witnessed how trust is built when communities recognize their common humanity. As Zipporah Nyawera, a Christian leader in Diani, Kwale County in Kenya, reflects, and I quote, "Regardless of our faith, we pray to the same God. Our children attend the same schools, and we share the same hospitals." This ethos aligns with the calls made at Parliamentary conference on interfaith dialogue held in Marrakesh, Morocco in June 2023, packaged as the Marrakesh Communique, which stringently advocated for dialogue grounded in fundamental rights. We must recall that a resounding concurrence at the meeting was that interfaith dialogue that is grounded in support for fundamental rights and freedoms is an essential tool for promoting inclusivity and peaceful coexistence, upholding the rule of law and encouraging collective efforts to achieve a better society. The Parliament of Kenya stands as a partner in advancing interfaith solidarity. We have championed laws that project religious freedoms and also protect freedoms and promote equitable resource distribution, a critical tool to dismantle the socio-economic disparities often exploited to fuel division. Our communities actively engage faith leaders in policy making, ensuring their voices shape national cohesion strategies. Kenya urges this assembly to undertake the following: invest in localized dialogue, like Kenya's Kumbatia Interfaith Youth Forums, focused on addressing radicalization and inequality. Amplify women's leadership in bridging religious divides, as seen in the case of Zipporah's work, combating gang violence through parental dialogues. Leveraging parliaments to institutionalize interfaith principles, ensuring policies reflect the Jubilee year's spirit of renewal. In closing, I implore us to remember this: trust is not a destination, but a journey. Kenya commits to walking with you in this path, in embracing our diversity as strength and our shared aspirations as the foundation for a future where no one is left behind. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. The President and co-founder of the Dharma Alliance, Prashant Sharma.
Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, friends, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I do so as President of Dharma Alliance Geneva and as a representative of the diverse family of dharmic traditions, Buddhist, Hindu, Jain, and Sikh, which guide the lives of over 2 billion people around the world. The dharmic worldview begins with a reverence for plurality, not as a challenge to overcome, but as a truth to be celebrated. As the Rig Veda proclaims, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. Truth is one. The wise call it by many names. This recognition of shared truth lies at the heart of our engagement in interfaith dialogue. This is why Dharma Alliance, founded in Geneva, works to ensure dharmic voices and values are part of the multilateral conversation. Our approach is grounded in 3 core principles. First, we must expand the table of dialogue. Too often, global conversations on religion and human rights rely on a specific set of traditions and frameworks. Dharmic traditions which do not always conform to institutional models of religion, are frequently underrepresented. Yet these traditions offer profound insights into ethical governance, compassion in public life, and the dignity of all beings. As the Buddha teaches, all paths of goodness converge in the ocean of compassion. Second, dignity must be our foundation. In dharmic thought, dignity arises from interconnection. The Sanskrit phrase, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family, urges us to look beyond borders and identifies and identities to our shared humanity. The Jain tradition echoes this. Parasparog paragraho jivanam. All life is bound together by mutual support. Third, dialogue must lead to action. For dharmic communities, dharma does not only mean spiritual duty, but ethical responsibility. In Geneva, we are working with scholars, states, and institutions on the SDGs and Dharmic Traditions Initiative, applying dharmic values to human rights, education, health, and environmental justice. We are also proud partners of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights Faith for Rights program and the UN University for Peace. As the Guru Granth Sahib reminds us, Na ko bairi, nahi begana, sagal sang humko banai. No one is my enemy, no one is a stranger. I get along with everyone. Interreligious dialogue, when rooted in non-violence, interdependence, and service, becomes more than conversation. It becomes a tool for peace, coexistence, and resilience. As the Bhagavad Gita says, he who sees the self in all beings and all beings in the self never turns away from anyone. This is not only a spiritual path, it is a political imperative. Let us build on it together. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Manuel José Osandón, Presidente del Senato del Cile. Later, Munib Yohanun, Bishop Emeritus of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Jordan and the Holy Land. Now the President of the Senate of Chile.
Buenos días. Good morning. I am Senator Osandón of Chile, President of the Senate of Chile. This conference on interfaith dialogue features a generous debate, and an open one at that, regarding the things which unite us and which may lead us to a future of cooperation and a humanistic feeling, one we all share. To do this, it is essential to look to what our beliefs, faiths, and ethics are. As a French philosopher once said, we have to distinguish to unite, and therefore, as a Catholic, let me say that the Second Vatican Council launched an appeal to all Catholics, urging them to recognize, preserve, and promote the spiritual and moral elements in other religions as a way of joining hands to work towards a world of peace, freedom, social justice, and moral values. With this level of openness, we Catholics understand that interfaith dialogue is sometimes a spiritual, sometimes a social task that allows us to understand what God wishes to tell us through the cultures of other religions. We have to understand that one of the essential traits of dialogue is recognizing the fact that we are different. And that is the awareness that allows us to appreciate the value of pluralism. How can we enrich interfaith dialogue, therefore? as mentioned by Jose Hernandez Iserrat, religions have a major task to deal with, which is that of promoting love through compassion, through hope, through mercy. And with these efforts, they have to establish a fruitful dialogue so that we can move from coexistence to cooperation, and then later on to fraternal friendship. And in this context, religions have to actively work to build a society based on sharing, freedom, social justice, and good governance. That's where politicians, lawmakers, lay people have to work responsibly to serve a political community, allowing it to function generously and through an interfaith dialogue. We lawmakers have to understand what Pope Francis said in his Laudato Si encyclical, when he said that we have to have a more fraternal human community, one that can establish fruitful relations, allowing us to deal with the major challenges we all face, including a sustainable use of the planet's resources, conflict solving, and therefore all those of us who are engaged in politics have to reaffirm and defend the inalienable rights of all humans. And finally, as lawmakers who build the present and the future of our societies, we have to fully understand the value of coexistence from the social and religious points of view. Religious diversity and the expression of mercy have to become part of our daily action. That is an important way through which we can improve the human condition and work towards achieving global peace. Thank you very much.
The President, now the video message of the Bishop Emeritus, the Evangelical Lutheran Church.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I greet you from Jerusalem that needs your prayers for justice. I would have loved to be present in person, but the war prevented me. Our world today is in dire need of cooperation between parliamentarians and religious leaders in order to together work for the common values of justice, harmony, living together, and reconciliation in order to make our world more safer. In the midst of war and illegal occupation, I would like to speak on four principles that we should work together. One, the sanctity of every life. God has created us on God's image, and Jesus Christ on his cross retained the sanctity and dignity of every life, regardless of religion, ethnicity, religious or party affiliation. As an Arab, Palestinian, Christian, evangelical, Lutheran bishop, and a Palestinian refugee, I affirm every human being bears God's image. Palestinians, Israelis, Europeans, Africans, Asian, Australian, American, Latin American, Jews, Christian, Muslim, other religions have equal dignity and equal life. Secondly, justice and only justice must be our aim in our societies and in our broken world. Some like to speak on peace. I always emphatically, in an emphatical way, say we need peace based on justice in the whole world, including the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Pope Leo XIV succinctly said, "Earth will rest, justice will prevail, the poor will rejoice, and peace will return once we no longer act as predators, but as pilgrims, no longer for ourselves, but walking only side by side." Thirdly, We have together to combat any kind of religious or political extremism. Religious extremism is a perversion of true religion. It is the antithesis of loving God and loving your neighbor as yourself. Extremism makes our world less safer. We only need robust moderation that respects human rights, gender justice, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, and equal citizenship that embraces diversity. Fourthly, we together must promote respect of holy sites, of all faiths, and together to combat any disrespect, desecration, or abuse when they are exploited for violent, hostile purposes. As I come from Jerusalem, I emphasize on the respect of the historical status quo of all holy sites. Holy places must not be places of war, conflict, of incitement. They are places of worship, prayer, meditation, and spiritual growth. I really long for peace based on justice in Palestine and Israel. I would like to ask you that we can cooperate together to stop any war, either in Gaza or the West Bank, Iran, Lebanon, Israel, Syria. There is no just war. There is only just peace. I pray that we can together work for this holy mission of peace based on justice in Israel and Palestine according to the international legitimacy. May God give wisdom to the powerful. As Prophet Micah says, what does God demand of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? May God bless you.
Thank you very much for this important video message. Now, Stefan Bartulica, President of the Political Network for Values. Where is? Okay. Paulette Misambo, President of the Traditional Senate, Gabon. Perhaps is in another meeting. And now, Speaker of the National Assembly, Zimbabwe.
He's not here.
Mudenda is here?
Not yet.
Not yet. Agustin Almodovar, Member of the Senate, Spain. The Speaker, excuse me, I'm sorry. The Speaker, Zimbabwe?
No.
Gabon. President of the Traditional Senate, Gabon, Paulette Misambo. Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, allow me to thank the IPU. Thank you, Madam President of the IPU. Thank you to Italy's Parliament for having invited us. And I also wish to greet my fellow parliamentarians. I also wish to thank all of the religious representatives who are attending this very important meeting. Allow me to underline the fact that in Gabon, the promotion of an inclusive society and of religious freedom is guaranteed by our Constitution. The same applies to the protection of minorities, the promotion of gender equality, along with the promotion of our national languages, which are a part of our education system and in our state communication, based on our new constitution, which is in line with the Marrakesh Declaration regarding the creation of democratic institutions. the goal of which is that of promoting a universal culture of inclusion. The President of the Republic of Gabon, following this recommendation, which he considered, set up a transitional parliament based on inclusion, which allows us to include all of society, civil society representatives, the military, religious representatives, people with disabilities, business people, everyone. Which brings us back to the topic we're discussing, which is strengthening trust and embracing hope for our common future. Allow me to underline the fact that this conference focuses very much on faith and on religion as a way of achieving peace among humanity, a humanity which is increasingly a victim of material violence. Humanity continues to be linked to what humanity feels is essential for its future. Culture has to be a crucial value as a way of achieving a hope-filled future. What we all share, despite our differences, is the reality of humanity itself. That is why it is so urgent to work towards a better future. That is one of the reasons why we appreciate this conference so much, which focuses on the crucial role parliaments have to face in terms of guaranteeing coexistence and the role religion can play in achieving coexistence, allowing us to work towards a better future. Therefore, in this conference, we have to deal with all the efforts required to build a community based on fraternity. It isn't a matter of focusing on our respective religious sense of belonging. We have to embrace everyone as part of the human family. Dialogue is crucial in trying to achieve a common good without focusing on our differences. We need solidarity so that we can communicate with one another and overcome our selfishness, and so that we can discover how similar we all are. And of course, the representatives of the different faiths have to work to overcome the obstacles to our social development. Furthermore, interfaith dialogue with new religious movements and with African traditional religions are a real need our societies have if we want to achieve coexistence. And this is already a reality we face in Gabon. This happens in all contexts in human life, in nature, in our families. We need to focus on coexistence. Again, this is a dialogue which touches upon all spheres of life. Religions and politics have to allow us to achieve coexistence, which means embracing human values. We have to remember that the values we share are worthy of our esteem. And we have to focus on what we share as human beings, despite the different religions we may have. Human beings have to work towards a real interfaith dialogue. In a world marked by war and violence, even in social networks, in a world in which the main victims are women and children, religion and faith have to be tools through which we can build bridges of solidarity. They have to help us build a world marked by peace and social justice. Thank you.
Now, Agustin Almodovar, member of the Senate of Spain.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Mr. President, President Axon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished parliamentarians. No religious cause can be exploited to destroy life, freedom, or the dignity of others. That turns religion into a tool of oppression. It is a real honor to take the floor in the Eternal City, where throughout history we have seen debates between religion and reason. We are here as lawmakers and human beings working to achieve peace, coexistence, and mutual respect. We live in a world which is different. This isn't a threat, it is an opportunity. But this can only be based on respect, which is a fundamental value. Respect means recognizing others as peers, despite the different views we may have, despite the different religions we may have. Europe and the world need now more than ever a voice that can speak as a bridge between religions and faiths, because that is the way through which we can achieve peace. But if we only see others through our biases, we end up with fanaticism and extremism. In Spain, we know what it means to foster the coexistence between cultures and religions. That's why here in Rome we want to raise our voices to say that respect is non-negotiable, and there can be no real freedom without religious freedom, and no democracy without interfaith dialogue. As lawmakers, we have an ethical duty, which is that of protecting and leading by example. We have to be bridges, not trenches. We have to promote education, tolerance, knowing one another, and empathy. Ignorance leads to hate, whereas communication leads to peace and fraternity. We have to be able to coexist, and that requires laws, respect, and recognizing the dignity of everybody, regardless of our faith and vision of the universe. Rome is also the symbol of a new stage through which politics can be used to unite rather than divide, to protect our priorities without ever overlooking the universal principles of freedom and peace. We live in societies in which religious freedom is something normal. This diversity has to be governed, and it has to be based on the deep recognition of others as peers with equal dignity, with equal rights, despite our religious differences. This is a political principle, the basis upon which religious freedom, social peace, and democratic cohesion are based upon. And the IPU, through its work, reminds us of the fact that interfaith dialogue is no secondary feat. It is an essential part of human development, because through dialogue we can reduce extremism. Through dialogue we can exclude hate. In Spain we understand that dialogue is a fragile thing which has to be nurtured through politics and dialogue. That's why we have to educate to coexist. And as parliamentarians, we have the duty of guaranteeing a legal framework that can protect religious freedom. And we also have the responsibility of being examples. We have to promote the politics of the encounter and not division. Dear colleagues, we have to continue in our commitment to respecting and protecting human dignity through pluralism and through mutual understanding. I wish to thank the IPU for reminding us of the fact that dialogue is the most powerful tool we have. We have to continue in our dialogue with intelligence and humanity. And peace isn't only built through agreements. It is built through shared values. And here in Rome, a city of empires, religions, war, and reconciliation, we have to renew this commitment with increasing strength. Thank you very much.
Now, Tageldin Hamad, Chairman of the Universal Peace Federation.
Thank you, Mr. President, honorable parliamentarians, respected religious leaders. You represent pillars of human civilization, law and morality, governance and faith. Your presence here is not just symbolic, it is a statement of our shared responsibility to secure peace for humanity. The Universal Peace Federation an NGO in a general consultative status with the United Nations, believes that true peace cannot be achieved through politics alone, nor through religion in isolation. Lasting peace emerges when political wisdom and spiritual insight walk hand in hand. In this spirit, we recall the visionary proposal of Dr. Haq Jahan and her late husband, Dr. Moon, the co-founders of the Unification of Universal Federation. On behalf of many religious leaders, on August 18, 2000, they organized an international conference at the United Nations headquarters in New York and called for the establishment of an interfaith council at the United Nations. They believe that alongside the voices of political leaders, the voices of spiritual leaders must also be heard, offering a moral clarity, spiritual wisdom, and a deeper perspective on the human condition. Several nations heard the call, and a productive process emerged that led to many positive results. Trust, dear friends, is the foundation of peace. It must be built intentionally through transparency, integrity, and mutual respect. Parliamentarians and religious leaders, as parliamentarians and religious leaders, you have the power and the duty to model this trust and instill it in your communities and nations. But trust alone is not enough. We must also embrace hope, not a passive hope that waits, but an active hope that builds, hope that enables dialogue where there is silence, healing where there is division, and cooperation where there has been conflict. Let us move forward together, not as representatives of institutions, but as brothers and sisters of one global family. Let us build bridges between politicians and faith, between nations and religions, between present action and future vision. Let us work for a world where the wisdom of the Spirit joins the decisions of the state, where trust is our compass and hope our shared journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Farooq Hamid Nek, member of the Senate, Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Madam President, Excellencies, dear colleagues, this year, significance of our gathering is elevated by its alignment with the Vatican's Jubilee year, a time symbolizing renewal, forgiveness, and hope. I take this opportunity to respectfully acknowledge the appointment of His Holiness Pope Leo XIV. It is our sincere hope that he will carry forward moral standing and legacy of his predecessor, Pope Francis, who consistently raised his voice against faith-based violence, including the ongoing genocide of Palestinian people. May his leadership continue to inspire the world towards justice, compassion, and interfaith harmony. We gather not just to speak, but to listen, to bridge gaps, and to reaffirm our shared humanity. In today's complex global environment, marked by deepening divides and rising intolerance, interfaith dialogue remains a vital tool for building inclusive and stable societies. It is not symbolic exercise, but a necessary response to the misuse of religion to justify violence, discrimination, and exclusion. Israel, again, a case in point. Pakistan stands firmly for the principles of peace, coexistence, and religious freedom. Our Constitution guarantees all citizens' right to practice their faith freely, and we continue to strengthen institutional frameworks that promote harmony among communities. Our Constitution provides for reserved seats for minorities to ensure their representation in the federal and the provincial legislative assemblies. We believe that meaningful dialogue between religious and political circles is essential to reinforce social cohesion, dispel distrust, and ensure that differences are marked and addressed through mutual respect and understanding. As a federal and democratic institution, Senate of Pakistan has played an active role in promoting interfaith understanding and protecting rights of minority communities. Senate of Pakistan has adopted multiple resolutions condemning religious hatred and reaffirming principles of tolerance enshrined in our national ethos. Parliamentary committees of Pakistan regularly engage with representatives from different religious communities to inform legislation and policies. Laws have been strengthened to protect places of worship, prevent hate speech, and ensure equal representation in democratic process. These measures are part of Pakistan's broader commitment to upholding religious freedom and adopting a culture of mutual respect within our diverse population. We are all witness to the troubling rise of religious intolerance, hate speech, and misuse of digital platforms to promote division. In many parts of the world, minority groups are facing persecution, often in silence. This calls for a unified response. Parliaments must work not only within national boundaries, but engage regionally and globally, sharing legislative best practices, connecting with civil society, and collaborating with faith leaders to combat narratives of hate. Strengthening legal and moral foundations of pluralism is no longer optional, it is urgent. Theme of the conference, Strengthening Trust and Embracing Hope, offers a timely reminder of our collective responsibility. Unless we take responsibility, we cannot build trust. We support proposals that encourage stronger parliamentary engagement with faith-based organizations, particularly in promoting education, youth inclusion, and responsible leadership. We also believe that global platforms such as the IPU can play a vital role in the developing shared frameworks on religious freedom, social cohesion, and peaceful coexistence. We urge establishment of continuous dialogue mechanism backed by data legislation and interfaith collaboration to address roots of intolerance. Let us reaffirm that peace is not built through silence and indifference, but through principled engagement and shared resolve. Pakistan stands ready to contribute to these efforts. We believe that interfaith dialogue anchored in mutual respect and human dignity is key to securing a more inclusive and peaceful global future. We thank the host once again and express our solidarity with all those working for harmony and justice across faiths and nations. May peace be upon you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now has arrived Mudenda, Speaker of the National Assembly, Zimbabwe. I give the floor.
He's there. You're not speaking?
Is he or not?
He's there. You don't want to? Ask him if he wants to speak. Maybe not. Ask him.
Do you want to speak?
Sorry, Chair. I was advised that I would speak in the afternoon, but I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay, in the afternoon.
Can I proceed?
Okay. Okay, yes.
The moderators, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, strengthening trust and embracing hope for our common future is a hallowed responsibility for parliamentarians in dialogue with religion and belief. Such an onerous responsibility demands that parliamentarians be evocative in their conversation with religion and belief in some measured theological plane. That calls for ethical and thought leadership, which espouses empathy and openness of the mind in order to enable to dialogue constructively and positively with religion and belief in the spirit of inclusive interfaith dialogue environment. But what kind of dialogue with religion and belief should parliamentarians pursue? It must be a dynamic engagement to fully appreciate the intricacies of the various religious beliefs and persuasions. If not, there is some danger that parliamentarians may find it challenging to legislate comprehensively for laws which ought to advance interfaith dialogue that is promotive of collegiate respect for the inalienable fundamental rights and freedoms in respect of the consummation of human dignity in worship. Oversight on the executive may be skewed towards weak superintendency. Equally, parliamentarians' representative role in matters of faith may suffer unintended stillbirth, the consequence of which would be the loss of public trust from amongst the citizenry. One way to remedy this conundrum is for parliamentarians to employ the use of artificial intelligence, AI, in the unfathomable ecosystem of various religions and beliefs, as well as the uncharted waters of African traditional spirituality. Here are some of the AI transformative engagements in interfaith dialogue. A primary application of AI in interfaith dialogue is its capacity for advanced language translation, which fosters communication between and among individuals from different linguistic and cultural backgrounds. AI can enable customized content delivery that reflects a wide array of religious perspectives. Furthermore, AI has revolutionized traditional methods of scriptural analysis and that of other doctrinal faith-based theologies. Parliamentarians and religious faith-based leaders can employ AI algorithms for predictive data analysis in enhancing interfaith dialogue for sustainable humane coexistence. However, parliamentarians and religious leaders must bear a critical responsibility in shaping the ethical governance of AI, lest we forget the pivotal anchor of the human factor in AI applications. It is axiomatic that as parliamentarians seek dialogue with religion and belief, they must earn public trust assuredly, so that to create grounded hope in humanity. They have to be pilgrims of hope, the hope which late Pope Francis affirms that hope does not disappoint, because in his first sign, and I quote, should be the desire for peace in our world, which once more finds itself immersed in the tragedy of war. May the Jubilee remind us that those who are peacemakers will be called children of God. May diplomacy be tireless in its commitment to seek with courage and creativity every opportunity to undertake negotiations aimed at lasting peace. I so submit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Now, Mr. Stefan Bartulica, member of the European Parliament from Croatia and president of the Political Network for Values.
Thank you, Chair. It's an honor for me to be at this event, and I want to thank IPU and all the people who made a great effort in organizing this gathering in Rome. Yes, I speak on behalf of the Political Network for Values. It's an honor for me to serve as the president of this organization. We promote fundamental values such as human dignity, the natural family, the right to life, and also free speech. Recently, there was a new law passed allowing abortion up until birth in Great Britain. This is very disturbing and unfortunately is a sign that many countries are embracing the culture of death. At the same time, in Britain, you can be arrested if you're praying in front of a health facility. So we have many problems in Europe. As a member of the European Parliament, I'm fighting for the fundamental freedom to speak. In the Commission, there is a fight now with these basic rights involving a law called the DSA, Digital Service Act, which allows regulators to control and even censor free speech online. I find this a major problem. We all have to, we don't have to agree on every issue, but we must agree that the right to free speech is essential for a free and prosperous society. Ladies and gentlemen, we will have an audience tomorrow with Pope Leo XIV. He is a true religious leader now, I think a man for the moment, who's speaking with great clarity to the world on these fundamental issues. And I call on the other religions, all world religions who are represented at this gathering, to embrace his appeal to unite and to speak with one voice when it comes to questions such as human dignity and also the right to life. We have many wars now that we're observing throughout the world. Unfortunately, also children and other innocent people are being killed, and we must condemn this with unanimity. This cannot become routine. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, it's an honor for me to speak here as a member of the European Parliament. I look forward to a fruitful discussion, and I wish IPU much success in your future endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for you. Now we start to ask them to give the floor to other speakers registered in the general debate. Fazi Mustafa is a member of the National Assembly of Azerbaijan. Now, my darling, 3 minutes, please. 3 minutes.
Your Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, it is both an honor and a responsibility to speak before you today on behalf of the National Assembly of the Republic of Azerbaijan. I extend my deep appreciations for the opportunity to be part of this vital global dialogue. We are here not just as political representatives or religious actors, but as human beings united by a shared hope for peace, dignity, and mutual respect. In a time when polarization is spreading across borders, our gathering reflects a collective commitment to harmony. Azerbaijan, often referred to as a pearl of the Caucasus, stands at the intersection of East and West. Our nation has long been a living example of multiculturalism. For centuries, people of different faiths, Muslims, Christians, Jews, and others have coexisted peacefully on our land. This tradition of tolerance is not accidental. It is deeply rooted in our secular constitution and the legal regulation of religion-state relations. The idea that everyone is different, everyone is equal, is more than a slogan. It is a principle Azerbaijan lives by. Our country treats multiculturalism as a state policy and dialogue as a daily practice. Religious tolerance is not left to chance. It is supported by legal frameworks and dedicated institutions. It is time we moved beyond outdated frameworks like Islam versus Christianity or East versus West. We need a new model, one based on universal ethics and supra-religious cooperation. Religion, after all, belongs to God. What we build from it, our culture, our laws, our behavior belongs to us. Importantly, we must stop confusing religion with morality. Religion can serve as a foundation for ethical life, but it must adapt to changing social realities. The breakdown of peaceful coexistence often begins when we treat moral norms as rigid, unchangeable dogmas. That's why platforms for intercultural dialogue are more important than ever. Azerbaijan has prioritized this since 2008 through initiatives like the Baku process, the World Forum of Intercultural Dialogue at the Baku International Humanitarian Forum. Our centers for multiculturalism and interfaith cooperation have made Baku a recognized hub for such global conversations. I believe strongly in the power of interparliamentary cooperation. By sharing a legislative experience, we can build more inclusive, resilient societies together. To live in peace, we do not need to agree on everything, but we must be willing to listen to one another and to respect each other's values. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Now, Kushavant Singh, head... I'm sorry. Sharon Rosen, video before. Later, Singh. Now the video.
I speak to you from my home in Jerusalem, this beautiful and troubled city that's so dear to billions of people. I had planned to be with you all in person, but while the skies in my region are now open to warfare, they're not open to civilians who want to advance international dialogue and strengthen trust in our common future. I wonder whether we would be in this situation now if we had truly invested over the years in a powerful and sustained effort to elevate diplomacy over military might in finding solutions to the conflict in the Middle East. When it comes to strengthening trust in the Middle East, it's clear that religious actors must play a central role. We know that for most people here, religion is an integral part of their identity. It's true religious actors can be, are, and have been part of the problem, but most would like to live in peace. We need to amplify their voices. When I began working in Search for Common Ground's Jerusalem office 20 years ago with its team of Palestinians and Israelis, I directed a Holy Sites initiative to reduce tensions around Jerusalem's highly contentious sacred spaces. We worked with religious leaders across the region, with the tacit support of their country's political leaders, on a declaration that respects the attachments of each religion to its holy sites and to set up a multi-stakeholder collaborative mechanism to protect them. While that task, which is still so sorely needed, ended in failure because of spoilers, it led the way to the creation of the Universal Code of Conduct on Holy Sites that offers a collaborative, multi-sectoral approach to protecting sacred spaces. This Universal Code has been successfully implemented here on Mount Zion in Jerusalem, among other places. The trust and collaboration developed among religious leaders, central and local government, the police, media, and volunteers substantially reduced tensions for several years. Sadly, though, they are rising again as resources are cut to NGOs to fund greater defense spending and more weapons. Extremist voices take over, and religious freedom inevitably suffers. So here are 3 recommendations to parliamentarians gathered here today to improve cooperation and address shared concerns. It's really important to learn about all the religions and beliefs in your countries. Religious literacy is an essential tool for parliamentarians to understand how to collaborate with diverse religious actors and reduce tensions. Secondly, attacks on holy places and their adherents are worldwide. Get involved and support multi-stakeholder approaches like the Universal Code to help minimize them. And finally, please provide more funding to the NGOs who are doing this collaborative work on the ground. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. Kushwant Singh, Head of Secretariat of the International Partnership on Religion and Sustainable Development. I don't know if he is here. Member of the Senate of Cameroon, Nagan Gube Aminatu, is here. Gennaro Migliore. Now, I can... Mr. Migliore. Mr. Migliore, Director of the Advisory Board of the International Committee on Countering Extremist and Hate Speech, and in the past, President of Parliamentary Mediterranean. No, now Migliore, and later, now Migliore, speak. Speak, Migliore, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and President of IPU. In a world marked by division and misunderstanding, dialogue is necessary. It's an act of justice, it's an act of peace and humanity. The IPU is the house of multilateralism and coexistence, and that's why I am very proud to be here in my home, because I was for a long time in this Chamber of Deputies to speak on behalf of my organization. Pope Francis says that interreligious dialogue is a necessary condition for peace and in the world, to become bridges of fraternity and not walls of enmity. But also hundreds of Muslim scholars signed a Makkah Declaration, where is, and I quote, "Religious and cultural diversity must never be a justification for conflict. Humanity needs dialogue and cooperation to confront common challenges." As well as in the Jewish tradition, the very respected Rabbi Jonathan Sachs said, differences are not to be hated, but honored. It is the respect of the differences that draw to the peace. 3 faith, 1 conviction. That peace is built on the mutual recognition. The faith must never be excuse for exclusion or war. That word matter, that not as a weapon, but as a bridge. In a letter sent to Corriere della Sera a few days before he passed away, Pope Francis said, "We must disarm words in order to disarm minds, and disarm the heart. There is a great need for reflection, calm, and sense of complexity. This vision inspired my organization, the International Committee Countering Extremist and Hate Speech, that we believe that hatred begins with words, and that words before they become violence must be disarmed. Hate speech is the serpent eggs, fragile, even invisible, yet containing the seed of a catastrophe. To tolerate this is to permit the unthinkable. We have seen horror of the October the 7th. We have seen the actual catastrophe in Gaza. All innocent blood cries out for justice, and dialogue must begin with the courage to recognize every human being as sacred. But we need to remember wars that wars try to forget. In Sudan, in Myanmar, in Congo, in Somalia, we have several conflicts and several innocent victims. Hatred has many fears and one root: the denial of others' humanity. Us versus them. This is the beginning of the hate and violence. Our words are different: truth, compassion, responsibility, tolerance. Dialogue that we dream after the Second World War, when was founded the United Nations, or recently after the Abraham Accord, that were not only a declaration but a concrete act, can be the driver, and we are in the place where it's possible to talk each other to reach the peace. We must be not only the echoes of the world's pain, we can be the voice of all the people of goodwill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Migliore. Now, Aminatu Nagangube, member of the Senate Cameroon.
Merci.
Thank you. Your Excellence, Madam President of the Interparliamentary Union, Honorable President of Parliament, fellow parliamentarians, representatives of the religions here, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to speak on behalf of Cameroon at this important conference, which follows the Marrakesh Communiqué. We are here in Rome, in this spiritual city, to discuss a crucial aspect together, which is how we can build hope to build a common future. Cameroon is a mosaic of different identities. It is a country which is often described as a miniature Africa. We have over 250 different ethnic groups. Our official languages are English and French, and we have a number of different confessions. Our diversity is both a spiritual and historic heritage that Cameroon has. And from the religious point of view, we have cooperation based on harmony between our various faiths. The Catholics, the evangelical Christians represent some 60% of the population, with over 2,000 churches. Muslims represent 25% of our population, with thousands of mosques throughout the country. We also have members who belong to traditional African religions. along with new emerging spiritualities, which are embodied by a number of tangible examples of coexistence. In some of our regions, we have families in which some members go to church and others go to the mosque. During Ramadan and other religious festivities, the various communities greet one another and often share meals. There are a number of ecumenical celebrations which are often organized together, during which citizens pray for peace together. Our institutions and our community representatives work to consolidate peace and to promote peaceful coexistence. This is the outcome of a number of inclusive policies, thanks to the wisdom of our religious leaders and thanks to the involvement of civil society. And together, we promote tolerance and mutual respect, along with coexistence. The Parliament of Cameroon has always supported initiatives aimed at achieving peace and social cohesion. A number of solemn declarations have been drafted as a way of promoting peace and as a way of strengthening national unity. A number of religious associations play a key role in Cameroon, bringing together the leaders of the main Christian religions, Islam, and it is a platform to promote exchanges of opinions through the organization of religious meetings, mutual prayers, and dialogues to promote a culture of peace, especially through our youth, through religious education aimed at developing tolerance. A tolerance which is, of course, expressed in our daily lives, in all of our neighborhoods, in all of our schools, in all of our efforts to allow mixed households to educate their children towards mutual respect. As a way of strengthening tolerance, we have also further institutionalized interfaith dialogue through a regulatory framework. We have also introduced coexistence in our school curricula. We have also worked to disseminate information regarding our daily lives as a way of countering violent extremism and hate speech, and also as a way of working to include women and youth in our dialogue platforms. Thank you.
Now Angelo Roic, President of the High Committee Board of the Istituto della Cultura Religiose, is a great friend for a long time in this assembly, like deputy.
Signor Presidente,
Mr. President, I am speaking on behalf of the High Committee Board. We are all brothers and sisters. We are the children of the same God who taught us the meaning of fraternity, as also enshrined by the UN. As far as this conference is concerned, I think it proves how cultural and politically important it is, how democratically aware it is. We are facing three conflicts, three global conflicts, and there are two realities that we have to try to speak to, parliaments and political leaders. Parliaments can have a say if they join forces. All of the remarks we have heard are inspired by the UN Global Charter with a focus on the anthropological value of all religious cultures, and yet The truth is that we have a hard time reaching out to our peoples, to our religions, to our societies. We have a hard time reaching out to our institutions. Pope Francis often spoke out against conflicts and asked for peace. And despite that, our religions, our academic institutions remained silent often. Pope Leo XIV has a difficult task ahead. The world is marked by increasing inequalities. And despite these difficulties, Pope Leo mentions the Rite of Arum. We are facing a revolution in artificial intelligence. What can we do, given the current context? Well, slogans are no longer enough. The Interparliamentary Union, the presidencies of the Chamber of Deputies and the Senate, here in Rome, the city of the Jubilee, we have the duty of striving to be brave through a comprehensive set of guidelines inspired by the Marrakesh Declaration, the EU Roundtable, and also inspired by the Center for Mediterranean Dialogue in Tempio in Sardinia. This is a process that has to involve all parliaments, all regional governments, all religions. We have to reach out to our schools, to youth, to children who are shaped by cartoons, by TV programs without any values. The Union of Parliaments and the UN have to realize that it is important to communicate to all people, especially young people, through school programs, through cultural and social centers. This, distinguished President of the IPU, is a challenge we all face. A challenge which began through the work of Professor De Luca and Imam Pallavicini in 2013. We need new tools, since the ones we have are no longer enough. We need new institutional models. Why don't we draft a Magna Charta which summarizes the values of all religious cultures that can then be disseminated to everyone? Why don't we come up with a new ethical code of conduct? Why don't we organize new international organizations as a way of defending minorities from aggression and violence, as was mentioned by all speakers today? In October, in Sardinia, we will be hosting the Second World Meeting of Religious Cultures, dedicated to finding new institutional proposals and projects. The second meeting, the second after 10 years, is open to all of you, and I do hope you can attend the upcoming meeting in Sardinia in October. Thank you.
Sven Lunde Larsen, Senior One Health Specialist of the Pandemic Fund, World Bank. Is present?
No.
Is present or not? No. No. Allora, Estonia, Elle Monica Elme, member. C'è? There is?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yes. Distinguished guest, Madam President, religious leaders, dear colleagues, honorable hosts, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, as a Christian and as a member of Parliament, I want to say that I'm very grateful to God for having brought us all together here, to give us the opportunity to declare, each in their own faith, the universal truth we, as human beings, have the duty to stand for, so that we could build hope for a better tomorrow for us all. May the divine will bring us to an understanding one of another and give prosperity to all nations and people. We are living very difficult and very challenging time. Unfortunately, it is full of various crises, conflicts, pain and suffering, all of which are breaking the human spirit. And this is why we are here, parliamentarians, spiritual leaders, all people of faith from all religions. We must be the light of hope for the whole world, both in word and in deed. We don't know what tomorrow will bring, and we don't know how much time we will be given. So let's use today. Let's use today to live, to be kind to others, to notice, to share, to help, and to love. This is a thread that runs through all religions. And in the same way as human pain and human suffering are universal and does not depend on which religion you belong to. Against this background, which we can see in conflicts around the world, it is our ultimate duty to remind each other that all life is given by God and is sacred. And there is no ideological, religious, or political reasons that give the right to take it away from anyone. Therefore, the supreme imperative of all our actions, no matter which religion we represent, is to take from it all the good that creates a better world for all of us and better future for our children. In Estonia, we recently celebrated a very sad anniversary, the anniversary of the deportation of 1941, where almost the entire intellectual and social elite of our nation, as well as thousands of ordinary people, women, children, and the elderly, were torn from their homes, husbands were separated from their wives, mothers from their children, and deported by trains to Siberia. 8 decades have passed since then, but the wounds that were struck in the spirit and the body of our nation are healing slowly, if at all. And that is why we as people can feel and understand what is felt by those who are in a similar situation, especially in today's conflicts. Let us then be good tools in the hands of our God, and let us do his good work in his almighty will. Thank you for attention. Grazie per l'attenzione. God bless you.
Grazie, grazie. Thank you very much. Now we have Farouk Aftab, Human Rights Committee UK, is present.
Thank you. Excellencies, honourable members and delegates, I speak today on behalf of the International Human Rights Committee to highlight a community persecuted across many Muslim majority states, but primarily in Pakistan, where this persecution is state-sponsored by law. We refer to the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Across the Muslim world, we have heard during this conference inspiring reflections on the progress made towards religious tolerance, justice and inclusion. But this progress must now be extended to include Ahmadi Muslims, whose rights are routinely denied, whose very identity is outlawed, and whose lives are increasingly at risk. In Pakistan, the situation has reached a state of emergency. 5 Ahmadis murdered this year alone, 9 mosques desecrated or sealed with police presence, over 100 graves destroyed, 60 by state forces, 148 arrested, and 140 criminal cases filed simply for calling themselves Muslims. This is more than religious intolerance. It is a deliberate campaign to erase a community's existence, and it is now being openly fueled by Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan, a violent extremist group that incites murder, spreads hate, and operates without consequences. Their call to kill Ahmadis is not isolated hate speech. These are signals of mass atrocity risk, as warned in the UN framework for genocide prevention. All these factors are present in Pakistan today. We issue 3 urgent appeals. Firstly, to Pakistan, you may disagree with Ahmadi beliefs, but you must, at the very least, protect them as citizens. Equal protection under the law is not optional. It is a constitutional and moral obligation. To Muslim-majority nations and religious scholars, the Ummah must not remain silent. Put aside your issues and unite. Let us stand together as Ummat-e-Wahida to say no Muslim should be persecuted for their faith. Let us follow the example of our beloved Prophet, the Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who was known as Rahmatul Lil Alameen, a mercy for mankind, and follow the clear injunctions in the Holy Quran, such as La Ikraha fi Deen, there is no compulsory religion, and Kuntum Khaira Ummatin, you are the best people raised for the good of mankind. To the IPU, where persecution is enabled, accountability must follow. We urge Magnitsky-style sanctions on those who incite, organize, or carry out religious violence. Distinguished delegates, our shared declarations from Marrakesh to Beirut affirm that inclusive citizenship is the cornerstone of peaceful societies. But citizenship must mean more than a passport. It must mean equal rights, equal dignity, equal protection, regardless of belief. Ahmadi Muslims are not asking for special treatment. They are asking to live, to worship, to bury their dead, and to speak their truth without fear. This is not just about religious freedom. It is about who we are, who we choose to protect. Let us not look back and say we heard the warning and did nothing. Let this be the moment we choose to stand up and ensure religious freedom for all. As I close, it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the state of the wider world. We are seeing a breakdown in international law and global moral order. Let us be honest with ourselves. If justice is not absolute, it is not justice at all. It cannot be that the principles we defend of human rights, rule of law, dignity, only apply depending on who we are, colour of our skin, what we look like, or who our allies and friends are. If justice is selective, peace will always be a lie and never achieved. And if we fail to uphold justice for all, we fail the very purpose of these institutions. Absolute justice is a prerequisite to the foundations of peace. This is the pathway to peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Ahmed Touzi, member of the House of Representatives, Morocco. And later, Tiago Felipe.
Thank you. President Cassini, thank you, Excellency Dr. Axon. As the President of the Moroccan delegation, it is my pleasure to address you today on this August opportunity, this conference that is hosted by Rome, the second IPU conference entitled Interfaith Dialogue, Strengthening Trust and Embracing Hope for a Shared Future. We meet at a very critical juncture. The international community looks for pragmatic approaches to de-escalate and to reduce tensions and to open horizons for collective living. This conference is a platform to enhance dialogue inter religions and faiths in order for a better tomorrow. It's not a coincidence that we all meet here 2 years after Marrakesh conference in June 2023, organized by the Moroccan Parliament in collaboration with the IPU. The first version of our conference has been the initial foundation towards a culture of dialogue, gathering parliamentarians from various continents, in addition to religious leaders and experts from international organizations and members of academia around one objective, making dialogue and cooperation the foundation for a better future to all. The first conference was hosted under the patronage of His Majesty King Mohammed V. He stressed that interfaith dialogue is an imperative for our collective future. The humanity is not faced with a conflict of civilizations as much as it is a conflict of ignorance. Therefore, calling for actions for peaceful coexistence and fraternity. The Marrakesh conference led to the Marrakesh communique stressing the importance of religions based on human rights and the prerequisites for peaceful coexistence, the rule of law, and the cooperation for better societies. And from here in Rome, we continue this path to deepen our experiences and our exchanges, to exchange experiences, to meet the global aspirations. In a world of today where the conflicts are increasing, political crises, economic upheavals, the worsening of discrimination and extremism, in addition to the climate crisis and the lack of confidence in institutions, all of this threatens the international peace and security. In light of a misinformation campaign, we have to spread hope among all segments of societies. This is not an option. This is a necessity. The religion should remain central as the cornerstone of human values. The interfaith dialogue should go beyond meetings and conferences. It should be the leverage for the rule of law, the protection of rights and freedoms, among which the freedom of belief and expression. Thank you.
Studies in Religion and Theology, University of Oxford, Tiago Felipe Alves Pinto. Is present? No. Okay. Gaetan Roy. Gaetan Roy is here. Permanent representative to the United Nations in Geneva of the World Evangelical Alliance. Thank you very much, Gaetan.
Thank you very much. I represent the World Evangelical Alliance, one of the largest church movements of the world with 600 million Christians in 143 national alliances. And we experience the turmoil and the fragmentation of our world on a daily basis through marginalization, through persecution, execution of our Christian constituency, and also the regular burning of churches. Now, all of us here talk about hope, and that's wonderful. But we need to go beyond just talking about hope. We need to step up our efforts towards becoming more part of the solution and less part of the problems. And faith-based values can play here a very unique role. The Apostle Paul wrote 2,000 years ago to the very church of this city that was experiencing persecution, killings, some of them even fed to the lions in the Colosseum. Paul encouraged them to become part of the solution. Paul said in his letter to the Romans, "Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good and pleasing and perfect will." So Paul is asking us to be different, to change our thoughts, to become part of the solution. So as the World Evangelical Alliance, we decided to change our thoughts and apply these faith-based values and become part of the solution. And the first point is serving. Paul also wrote in the letter to Romans, "Be living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God." This is your spiritual act of worship. And behind the word worship is the old Greek word latreia. And latreia means to serve. So one of the things I do the most when I meet people, religious leaders, governments, is to ask the question, how can I serve you? Now, it's not the question that makes the difference, but it's the attitude that is behind it that has different unique expressions. And one of the expressions is, we don't complain, we don't bring demands, but instead, we try to bring solutions to the table. The second thing is, the third thing is we don't denigrate governments or religious leaders or countries. Instead, we strive to build relationships with them that foster trust and then builds a basis that we can talk about solutions. So recently, I just came back from a country where Christians are killed almost daily, where churches are regularly burned, and I met the Minister of Religious Affairs. And I brought him a solution to create new types of peace committees that when there's an insurrection in the country, the peace committees go before, they're trained on peacemaking, they're trained on deconfliction, and they go before to try to solve the problem before people are killed and before the churches are burnt. I didn't complain to the minister. Had I complained, I probably wouldn't even have had access to the minister. The minister agreed. There's a public statement, and now we're going into implementation. So to close, I wish to invite you all to become ambassadors who actively serve humanity and mirror these values of God. We need people who bring more change. We need to make a difference. And I'll close with a quote from Paulo Coelho, who said, "The world is changed by your example, not by your opinion." Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, Boban Karapojewski, I'm sorry for the pronunciation, member of the Assembly of the Republic of North Macedonia. Thank you.
It's okay? Thank you very much. It's very hard to wrap all things up in just 4 minutes, but let's try. Mr. Chair, Madam President, distinguished presidents of the parliaments, esteemed hosts from the Italian Parliament and the Interparliamentary Union, fellow parliamentarians. It is a great honor to address here in Rome, a city that has for centuries stood as a crossroad of faith, dialogue and civilization. It is also a great opportunity for us as lawmakers from diverse nations to gather and reflect on one of the most urgent tasks of our time, strengthening trust and embracing hope in a world often divided by fear and misunderstanding. As parliamentarians, we are not only lawmakers, we are bridge builders. We have the moral responsibility to ensure that our legal systems protect freedom of belief, promote respect for diversity, and create safe platforms for dialogue. Macedonia as a country is a home to multiple religious traditions: Orthodox, Muslim, Catholic, Jewish, Protestant, and others, all woven in a social fabric of our democratic state. Dialogue among religions and beliefs is not a theoretical concept for us. It is a daily practice and a necessity for social harmony. Allow me to underline that leaders of religious communities, Archbishop of the Macedonian Orthodox Church, Archbishopric of Ohrid, the head of the Islamic religious community, the superintendent of an Evangelical Methodist Church, and the president of the Jewish community in Macedonia have recently, last May, signed a declaration against violent extremism. Religious leaders sent a clear message that there is no place for violent extremism and religious radicalism. They committed to strengthening mutual cooperation, to act proactively against any form of hatred and any speech that incites intolerance, as well as against potential threats to coexistence and public safety. It was also pointed out that religious communities are among the key factors in preventing and curbing violent extremism because their presence and activities with believers can be of great benefit in strengthening communities. Gathered in the spirit of mutual respect and guided by a sense of shared responsibility, the signatories are aware of their role in preserving social peace and agree as an expression of a common determination to build dignified coexistence and resilience against violent extremism. They are aware that our country, as a secular state, is a common home of different peoples, cultures, and beliefs, and that coexistence is a value that must constantly be nurtured and protected. It is stated that the community must face the abuse of religion as a pretext for division and violence, with increasingly common forms of hate speech and processes of radicalization that lead to violence and violent extremism. Trust begins with listening. As leaders, we must engage faith communities as partners, not just in moments of crisis, but in shaping a vision for a shared future. Hope, dear colleagues, is not just an emotion. It is a political act. When we invest in inclusive education, when we support interfaith youth programs, when we promote religious literacy, we are actively building hope. Let us take inspiration from the eternal city, where the ancient and the modern live side by side, and return to our parliaments with renewed commitment to build societies grounded in mutual respect, open dialogue, and lasting peace. On behalf of the Macedonian Assembly, I thank you, and I look forward to the continued work we will do together. Thank you.
Thank you very much for you. And now Ruben Emmanuel, Advocacy Officer of Nigeria. There is here. No. Ivan Ariona Pelado, President. There is? Yes. President of the UN Geneva NGO Committee on Freedom of Religion or Belief. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Honorable Mr. Cassini, Honorable Mrs. Tucson, those who are about to speak, in recognizing your courage for respecting and accepting diversity, we salute you. Espes, Elpida, Esperanza, Hope, Shiwan, Asha, Amal, Espoir, Speranza. In short, different languages may dress the same truths in different ways, but the meaning remains universal. As Pope Francis once hinted, religions as diverse spiritual languages help people of all backgrounds reach communion with the same divine reality, with the infinity and the creation of the source. In our committee at the UN Geneva, we are Christians of all traditions, Catholics, Protestants, Baptists, Evangelicals, Orthodox, Latter-day Saints, Unificationists. We are Buddhists, Baha'is, we are Hindus, Humanists, Jews, Muslims, Sikhs, Scientologists, and more. Together, we work to communicate these different realities, building affinity and understanding across humanity on issues that touch thought, conscience, religion, and belief. Through affinity, reality, and communication, we seek an understanding so that rights and the responsibilities that come with it become a lived reality. I invite you now to reflect on these words that I will say from a prayer for total freedom as written by humanitarian and philosopher L. Ron Hubbard. And I quote, "At this time, we think of those whose liberty is threatened, of those who have suffered imprisonment for their beliefs, of those who are enslaved or martyred, and for all those who are brutalized, raped, or attacked. We pray that human rights will be preserved so that all people may believe and worship freely, so that freedom will once again be seen in our land. Freedom from war and poverty and want. Freedom to be, freedom to do, and freedom to have. Freedom to use and understand man's potential, and a potential that is God-given and God-like. And freedom to achieve that understanding and awareness that is total freedom. May God let it be so. Thank you.
Thank you very much for you. Now, Evelina Okab is here, Senior Program Lawyer of the International Bar Association's Human Rights Institute. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. The International Bar Association's Human Rights Institute, DIBARI, is highly concerned about the deteriorating situation of women and girls in Afghanistan, a situation that meets the legal definition of religious persecution and gender persecution, but also shows concerning parallels with apartheid and must be called for what it is, gender apartheid. In early 2024, DIBARI supported an ad hoc inquiry in the UK Parliament examining the situation of women and girls in Afghanistan and whether this would amount to gender apartheid. Its recommendations include supporting the efforts to codify gender apartheid, but also utilizing all possible avenues to help women and girls in the country. Silence in the face of segregation in Afghanistan cannot be accepted. DIBARI remains deeply concerned about the risks faced by those remaining in the country and how women's exclusion compounds the collapse of the rule of law. Without women being able to meaningfully join and engage with institutions of power, including the Afghan parliament, they will remain second-class citizens. Furthermore, DIBARI is highly concerned about the situation of the Hazara in the country, an ethno-religious minority community. Treatment which has the hallmarks of crimes against humanity and genocide, requiring urgent attention from the international community in line with the duties under the UN Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. We urge parliamentarians to support the ongoing efforts to ensure justice and accountability for women and girls in Afghanistan and for minority communities, including by way of joining the efforts of Australia, Canada, Germany and the Netherlands, who have formally called upon Afghanistan to cease its violations of the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women under Article 29 of the Convention. Joining Chile, Costa Rica, Spain, France, Luxembourg and Mexico in referring the situation of women in Afghanistan to the International Criminal Court. Calling upon domestic authorities to initiate structural investigations against members of the Taliban for their involvement in gender persecution and other crimes, followed by prosecutions under the principle of universal jurisdiction, and initiated proceedings against the de facto authorities before the International Court of Justice for the violations of the Genocide Convention in their treatment of the Hazara community. We also call upon parliamentarians to engage governments to support the establishment of a UN investigation and accountability mechanism mandated to collect, preserve and analyze ongoing systematic and gross human rights violations in Afghanistan. We also call upon parliamentarians to accommodate further focus on the issue of gender apartheid, with parliamentary debates, motions and resolutions on the situation of women and girls in Afghanistan, and also provide a platform for women and girls to participate and contribute meaningfully. And lastly, we call upon parliamentarians to identify the best ways to support women and girls in Afghanistan and ethnic and religious minorities through grassroots organizations. I thank you.
Thank you for you, Evelina. Now, Victor Eichner, World Jewish Congress representative to the Holy See. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, members of Parliament, delegates, esteemed colleagues. We gather at a time of mounting turbulence and war, where the safety and dignity of communities, especially religious minorities, face growing threats. Among the most endangered are Jewish communities. In Europe, North America, Latin America, and Africa, anti-Semitic incidents have surged to record levels, making Jews the most targeted religious group in several countries. At a time when our communities are facing a wave of violent anti-Semitic attacks, we have seen how incitement and false narratives can lead to violent and even deadly consequences. In just the past weeks, 15 elderly Jews were set on fire in Colorado. Rabbi Alle was violently assaulted twice in France, and Canada's National Holocaust Monument was vandalized. This follows the heinous murder of Salam Milgram and Yaron Lishitsky, killed near the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. by an anti-Israel extremist. These are not isolated events, they are warnings. This crisis demands not withdrawal, but deeper engagement. The World Jewish Congress, representing 105 Jewish communities across the globe, believes that our answer to hate must be stronger alliances, not silence. This is why we have expanded our engagement, including the establishment of our representative office to the Holy See in Rome, a milestone of Jewish-Catholic partnership. We are grateful to His Holiness Pope Leo XIV for his gracious letter addressed to our office at the beginning of his pontificate, in which he pledged to continue and strengthen the Church's dialogue and cooperation with the Jewish people in the spirit of the Second Vatican Council's declaration Nostra Aetate. This year's 60th anniversary of Nostra Aetate is indeed a powerful moment to deepen that spirit, not only in Jewish-Catholic relations, but in building bridges between Jewish people and all religious communities. In today's digital age, shaped by artificial intelligence and algorithms, the line between truth and falsehood has grown dangerously thin. Disinformation spreads faster than dialogue, and hate speech is just a click away. This is why education is not just a right, but a civic and spiritual imperative. Faith leaders and parliamentarians must work together in hand-to-hand to restore truth and trust. We must invest in peace and education, digital literacy, and ethical technology governance. The World Jewish Congress has taken a step in this direction through the WJC Institute for Technology and Human Rights, which examines the intersection of technology, hate, and human dignity. I urge you all to join us in this effort, and I call on governments, parliaments, and religious authorities to coordinate our work with the private technology sector to ensure that human values guide digital spaces. Finally, we cannot forget that we pray for the release of the remaining 53 Israeli hostages still in Gaza and renew our call for peace, coexistence, and reconciliation for all people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for you. Rodrigo Goni, Uruguay, member of the House of Representatives, is there. Okay. Sì, sì, c'è. There. Date la voce là, è laggiù in cima. You have to push. Okay.
Grazie, Presidente. Thank you, President. I think that this morning it became very clear that the old themes which were restricted to interreligious dialogue have now grown broad. The frontiers of interreligious dialogue have broadened to these new challenges which come to us from artificial intelligence, digitalization, and new technologies in general. And therefore, I think that we encounter the paradox that in a world where it seemed that secularization was narrowing our space and eradicated our voices, we now paradoxically have the opportunity of broadening the frontiers of interreligious dialogue so that we have a voice which does not come solely from our personal motivations, but representing a general attitude towards the new challenges which are made complex through the new technologies. So we hope that in future interreligious dialogues we will be able, as many members of parliament, many speakers have indicated today, this need that faced by a new age which seems to disorientate us and makes it difficult to us to know how to stand before the changes of the world, that we can make use of religious wisdom in order to guide us and help to protect the planet and protect humankind. It's in, therefore, religious wisdom and traditions that we can find this guidance which the world is obviously asking for.
Thank you very much. Rodrigo, Farid Hamad, National External Affairs Secretary General of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. There is here? Yes, thank you. I'm sorry for the pronunciation.
Thank you. Honourable Chair and delegates, Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings of Allah be upon you. This conference is about dialogue, and it is about building trust. And trust is based on values, as we have heard, values of honesty, integrity and justice. And in the Holy Quran, this is made clear. It says that verily Allah enjoins justice and the doing of good to others. Powerful words. The principle of this type of justice was exemplified in the Charter of Medina, where the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, established a pluralistic society that had equal rights and mutual responsibilities for all communities. These values build trust. His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, the head of the worldwide Ahmadiyya Muslim community, has also called upon international institutions to work on the principle of justice, because justice at an international level is the basis of peace. And he said that let it be clear that where a veto power exists, the scales of justice can never be balanced. So international institutions also need to exemplify justice. Another principle of trust is to listen. And an Islamic principle is that whoever counsels you towards goodness, you should accept it, regardless of their race, nationality, or faith. It is the principle of accepting goodness. This conference also talks about hope. Hope is born out of action. And for me, we have heard a lot of speakers, and what would give us hope and me hope is that those parliamentarians who have heard the voices of religious people, voices of compassion and peace, they need to implement in their parliaments these actions and values with sincerity. We've heard of the persecution of different communities, the hatred, the persecution of Ahmadiyya Muslims in Pakistan who do not have the right to vote and who face arrest for simply praying, the persecution of Christians, the suffering of the Jews and other communities. Faith-based persecution and the weaponization of faith must end. Lastly, about common future. The question I put to you is, what common future are we looking towards? Are we walking to a future with our eyes closed or our eyes open? Is it a future of peace or war, where nations are restless with a finger on the nuclear button? What have we learned, and more critically, what will we change coming out of the conference? Because the status quo will not work. Countries have spoken about their good works, which is good. They now need to improve. But more importantly, they need to make changes, because we are walking into destruction. Changes that will build freedom of religion for all, justice for all, and require broader thinking, not just at a national level, but at an international level. I closed with a quote from His Holiness, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad. He said, "Leaders must take long-term view of what is best for mankind, rather than being blinded by their self-interest. We must all come together, setting aside our national, political and other vested interests for the greater good of humanity, to ensure that we leave behind a prosperous world for our future generations." That is what would give us hope. That is what would build a common future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kushwant Singh, Head of Secretariat of the International Partnership on Religion and Sustainable Development, now, and later MP of India, Konyak. But now, Singh.
Thank you. I'm here.
Where is he?
I'm here.
Ah, okay.
Thank you. The Excellencies, thank you very much for inviting me. 8 out of 10 people on this planet feel affiliated to a religion. So in fact, we can really say that religion matters. It has been said that parliamentarians are not only developing laws, but you are bridge builders. So in this world, we have so much fragmentation where unilateralism is again rising. I invite everyone to engage in multilateral cooperation, in a cooperation that brings together all the key actors of life. These are government entities, multilateral institutions, academia, but also civil society. And religion is part of civil society, and that's why religion matters. If parliamentarians recognize the importance of religious actors in the same way as actors from economy, for instance, are regarded as very important, then we can come to inclusive policies, and I would even say we could come to more effective and sustainable policies. So please be and feel invited to join international partnerships that bring together all the key stakeholders to one table to work on a long-term basis, to really work on a long-term basis for sustainable development. And you have said it in the last days, dialogue is very important, but even more important is to work together after having an open dialogue. So we need cooperation. I invite you to join our annual forum, which is happening in Rome in October, where we bring all the key actors from our partnership, government entities, multilateral representatives, academia, and religious actors to one table to develop policies and recommendations for a sustainable world in the field of health, in the field of environmental protection, in the field of gender justice, and in the field of social cohesion and food security. I would also invite all the parliamentarians to make use of available funds where you have access to. I'm just giving one example, which is the pandemic fund. You have $500 million in this fund, and it has a One Health approach. And you are the ones who could inform the right people in your government to make use of these kind of very substantial funds. If we want to develop inclusive policies, but also practical solutions for those who are working on the ground, it's very important to have approaches that bring together the expertise of policymakers, but also of academia and civil society. So, for instance, in our partnership, we have developed guidelines, actionable guidelines on integrating spiritual care into psychosocial support for displaced children and women. And as we have seen, it is very important to protect vulnerable people in war times with a holistic approach. If you want to engage, again, feel invited to join our partnership. It's free of cost. You don't need a full bag with money. We just need your engagement and your openness to be a driver for sustainable and inclusive development. If you need more information, feel free to approach me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for you. Mr. Konyak, India.
Thank you, Chair, for the floor.
Where is it?
Here. Here.
I'm sorry.
Distinguished delegates, religions have long influenced individual and political behavior by states. By bringing together political and religious leaders, this conference provides a vital platform to address the common challenges our societies face today. It is important to understand that the two principles of rule of law and freedom of religion or belief are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they are deeply connected and reinforce each other in preserving statehood and citizenship. India has consistently strived to strike a balance between these two principles, promoting religious harmony while upholding the rule of law. Our Constitution enshrines the fundamental right to freedom of religion or belief under Articles 25 to 28. It guarantees the right of every citizen to freedom of conscience and the right to profess, practice, and propagate religion freely, subject to public order, morality, and health. India is not only religiously diverse, but also linguistically pluralistic, with 22 official languages, 121 recognized languages, and over 1,350 mother tongues as per Census 2011. India exemplifies how unity can thrive in the midst of immense diversity. India's diversity is its strength. We have enacted various acts to safeguard the interests of minorities. The Ministry of Minority Affairs focuses on issues concerning the minority. The ministry's mandate includes policy formulation, coordination, evaluation, and oversight of development programs for minority communities. In pursuance of goals for inclusive development, the National Commission for Minorities organizes interfaith meetings with minority communities to promote an environment of harmony and respect. It also observes interfaith celebrations of religious festivals for fostering unity and social cohesion. India has taken several initiatives focused on reducing disparities and promoting inclusion of minority in India's progress. In the Union budget for the year 2025-26, $387 million have been allocated to the Ministry of Minority Affairs, with the provision of $78.4 million for the educational empowerment of students of minority communities. Equally important is promoting digital literacy, enabling citizens to critically evaluate online content and misinformation through transparent regulations and content moderation standards. Distinguished delegates, India acknowledges the dangers posed by hate speech. Our Information Technology Rules 2021 require digital platforms to set up grievance redressal systems and follow a code of ethics ensuring accountability in the digital public sphere. India is a staunch believer in peace, democracy, and social harmony. We are a land of interreligious coexistence, the birthplace of Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism, with a long tradition of secular governance and mutual respect among communities. Distinguished delegates, let me conclude by affirming that India stands for peace, harmony, dharma, and non-violence. Our guiding principle, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family, captures our belief in universal brotherhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, now we stop the assembly until 2 o'clock. The lunch will be served at first floor, Sala della Lupa, Hall of Wolf, but at the first floor. And our remind is that the conclusion of the meeting will be about at 5 o'clock in this assembly. For tomorrow morning, for tomorrow, 2 reminds. The first, for the meeting of the Pope, I would like to remind you that the audience with Pope Leo is scheduled for tomorrow at 10 o'clock. The appointment for transfer is in Piazza Montecitorio Square, at 7:45 a.m. tomorrow morning. Please confirm your participation at the registration desk staff until now, so that your transfer can be booked. I would like to inform you that those who intend to reach the Vatican by themselves with their own means of transport are kindly asked to contact their embassy to the Holy See and communicate the license plates of the cars that will access to Vatican City for the necessary authorization. Return from the Vatican to Piazza Montecitorio tomorrow will be organized with the same basis at 11:30. And the last information, tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, there is a great meeting show, the great show, musical show in St. Peter Square. But if you want, it's free for us, but if you want to go, we have the ticket, but you have to reserve on the desk. Before it's impossible to go directly to the square without tickets. So if you want confirm, if you want go, you have to confirm. Okay, at 2 o'clock we restart. Thank you very much.